and somebody picks up the punch bowl and they just dump it all over the floor. And then somebody else starts cleaning it up, and the first person starts yelling, "No, don't clean it up like that." At a certain point, you got to be like, well, I am worried about how the cleanup is being done, but it seems to me that we should talk about why there's punch all over the floor.
Punch bowl example to me is like, let's say like someone's at the party and someone spills over a punch bowl, and then everybody collectively at the party just like beats the shit out of and like tortures the person who like spilled the punch bowl, and then Ryan's over here like, well, maybe we should have asked like why they spilled the punch bowl in the first place. I feel like that's like it's just like a different world.
Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Whick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today we're asking a very simple question. Would Kamala Harris be performing as president better than Trump is currently? We got some great people on to debate that topic, and I'm really excited to have them. I'm going to give the mic first to Mr. Lucas, and then we're just kind of going to go around, and then we'll start the show. Try to keep your opening statements brief, concise, because the meat of the conversation is in the conversation, not in the monologues. Go ahead, Lucas. Start us off.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I'm Lucas. I do bodybuilding and TikTok debates. I'm trying to get over to this space. So, yeah, I think there are many reasons Kamala Harris would have performed better than Donald Trump. So many, in fact, that I think even making the comparison is quite silly. I think Trump's corrosiveness to our liberal democracy, whether that be through his divisiveness, attacks on political opponents, silencing of opposition, or his hatred of free and fair elections, is laughably incomparable to Kamala Harris. I don't think Kamala Harris would have called for sitting congresspeople to be hanged for their free speech. I don't think she would have celebrated the deaths of political opponents. I don't think she would have pardoned insurrectionists, calling them patriots and saying January 6th was a day of love. I also think Trump's disdain for rule of law is another massive reason Kamala has the advantage there. I don't think we would have seen the massive constitutional violations that we see under Trump, like the First Amendment and due process. And I think there's a lot of other things too, like corruption. I don't like his foreign policy. I think pretending that they're comparable is unserious, and I'm interested to see how my opponents are going to justify that view.
Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Rinald, I know you're a little bit of a last-minute guy, so I understand. But do you have anything for us as an opening
No,
statement?
I just think that I think Harris is better. Trump is bad. Trump seems pretty evil. I feel like I have an interest in having a Kamala Harris presidency because I liked Biden's time better. It feels like the fabric of the country is kind of deteriorating under Trump because of Donald Trump's actions. That's all.
Well, thank you for being here. Sean, potentially criminal Sean, give us your opening statement, sir, and introduce it also to my audience.
Yeah.
Tell people who you are, right? It's your first time.
Sure. So my name's Sean, also known as potentially criminal. I'm an attorney out in Ohio. Yes, the most wonderful and bestest state in America. I'm kind of like Reynold. I was a little late today because I was taking care of stuff, so I'm here a little late. Obviously, probably about as short as his. Obviously, though, I think Trump's doing better than Kamala Harris would have done, and I look forward to explaining that a little more in depth as we get going here. So my apologies, I didn't have really time to prepare.
You're all good, man. That's a perfect
one of those
concise
days.
statement. I appreciate it. Let's go with Ryan. Last but certainly not least. Go ahead.
I'm Ryan Mullally. I host Natural Law with Ryan Mullally, and I'm an attorney, and I've litigated at every level of the U.S. judicial system, including the U.S. Supreme Court. And I was delighted when Whick proposed this topic. I snapped it up as soon as I saw it. And the reason I did is that it asks a really fundamental question that I think no one or very few people actually talk about, which is that a lot of people like to spend a lot of time talking about their least favorite things about Trump. Whatever Trump did, whatever problems they have with him, people talk about that endlessly. But there's very little examination of what the criticisms of the Biden administration and by extension the Harris presidency were, and why people were disquieted by this, why it was a massive turnoff for the voter base, and what were the concerns that people had. And that largely goes unaddressed in these spaces. So just so, like, I don't want to monologue too much, but to give a non-exhaustive list of like potential issues that I would love to hear my friends on the left discuss about why Harris would be better. Biden has a atrocious record on judicial appointments. Biden has had an atrocious record on foreign policy. There were serious concerns that under the Biden administration that racism, bigotry were going to be enacted into law and given legal protection and legal mandate and then be binding on other parts of the country. Not only was this happening, it was a trend that was then being mimicked by state governments and mimicked by corporations and public life. Free speech is probably going to come up. I'm not a fan of Trump on free speech, and I'm going to be happy to join you in criticizing him there. But Biden was terrible on free speech, unbelievably bad on free speech, to the point where there was a culture in the country at the time where if you were a conservative, you didn't want to speak publicly for fear of losing your job. And that's not even talking about the actual policies yet. And if I was going to encapsulate it into kind of like one moment, and I haven't even talked about the border yet, by the way, so which we should talk about, but there's also that little clusterfuck. It was Kamala Harris saying, mimicking Biden, that equity had to be at the heart of everything that they did, which is Biden's line, and her saying equity is when everyone gets to the same place. And that sentiment is fundamentally un-American. It is fundamentally contrary to our founding values. It is fundamentally contrary to who we are as a country, and I do not think it is defensible, and I do not think it was academic. There were real policy decisions made that back up her claim. But in any event, it should be fun to talk about, and I do wonder whether our friends know very much about the woman they were championing, but we'll find out.
I guess we will. Thank you all for being here. I do really appreciate you. And I guess we'll open up the floor. There's been a lot said. And if I tell you to stop talking, it's simply because you're all talking over each other. And no one likes that because no one can hear what's being said. So I'm just going to try to direct conversation as best as I can. With that, let's get into it. Floor is open to anyone who has the will to start. Go ahead.
So I guess to you,
Sure.
well, the question I was asking you guys at the end, I'm curious about, like, have you spent any time or thought examining what the Biden administration, the Harris administration meant by the term equity and why that term really was concerning to people in the center and on the right? Like, what was the problem there?
Sure, and I think we could actually probably acknowledge that there, are, like, obviously I'm not going to say that the Biden administration and by extension the Harris administration was perfect, but something that you said in your opening statement I think kind of illustrates the whole approach of this debate, where you said, like, oh, a lot of people will go on about their list of the least favorite things that the Trump administration has done and then use that to disregard the concerns of the right-leaning Americans. And, like, there's, individual conversations we can be having about these individual topics. But the problem is that when we're juxtaposing, rhetoric about valuing equity and being at the heart with the kind of actions that the Trump administration has taken, especially when the topic is comparing the two administrations or who would be doing a better job right now, I feel like that's kind of the biggest problem, right? Like, the idea that we're comparing these two things, I think, speaks to the problem with the right, is that it feels like we're kind of disregarding the concerns on the left on the grounds that you guys just have concerns.
Would it be helpful if I gave you policy to look at rather than rhetoric? Would that alleviate your concern?
No, it wouldn't alleviate my concern, but it would obviously help. I'm saying that sure, go ahead.
So, non-exhaustive list. During COVID, the Biden administration had multiple programs, some of which were shut down by court order because they prioritized giving funds to people on the basis of race or the basis of, for example, sexual identity, in a way that was impermissible. Basically, you could not get federal money if you were a straight white male, but you could if you were a member of a different group. In the affirmative action cases, which the previous Trump administration had called in public court filings a de facto race quota policy at the highest levels of education, the Biden administration defended it and before the Supreme Court and said this should, in fact, continue. There were multiple instances where the administration created policies where you could only get federal money as a contractor if you had a diversity report, a diversity metric, i.e. you could show that you had enough diversity in your hiring. They were pushing ESG and a number of other policies that had indirect effects, but one of my favorites was that on NASDAQ, where every Fortune 500 company is listed, they pushed a rule through the SEC that required that you have a diversity quota on the board of directors. So they were going to enforce by law a quota about non-straight white males being on the board of directors of every Fortune 500 company in the country. So this is not like an empty rhetorical thing. They were creating policy that was being enshrined in law that was specifically racist and bigoted. And this does not strike me as a hand-wavy type concern. That strikes me as a fundamentally un-American value. So if that's helpful, you could chew into any of those examples.
I guess like if we're framing this like a civil rights issue, my question would be like, who do we think felt reasonably more persecuted under an administration? Do you think it would be like white people under a Biden or Harris administration, or like a brown person or an immigrant under the Trump administration who is consistently like getting their rights violated, like left and right, getting sent to torture prisons without due process, having federal agents like busting into their homes without judicial warrants, being sent to detention centers with like horrific conditions, not being allowed to contact their lawyers. I don't really like buy into like that like comparison there.
Well, I don't either, because you're comparing, by and large, oppressing your citizens versus not alleged maltreatment of non-citizens, which is a pretty different thing. I typically am more concerned about how the government treats its citizens than how the government treats non-citizens. But if you want to bring up those examples, by the way, I just want to flag for the audience, at the beginning I said, I wonder how much they know about the stuff I'm going to bring up. No response from either of them to any of the examples I brought up, because the answer seems to be they don't know any of this stuff, but that's okay. As to your examples, if you have a specific example you would like to bring up, I'd be happy to walk through it. I think that there are some examples of Trump enforcement actions that I would join you in criticizing, but it's often overblown. And oftentimes people are talking about media headlines and they're not actually talking about a specific example. So is there a specific example that you would like to talk about, and then we can work through it?
Just real quick, what you said about like the non-citizens versus citizens thing, I feel like there's like a different category there, like people being in the country legally that aren't citizens, that might be here like on TPS, like asylum claims, like green cards. Do you not like also like value the treatment of those people?
Sure. But would you like to point me to an example of a TPS member being deported unfairly or treated not having due process, or like what is the example you're pointing me to?
So have you heard of the case like Molina versus DHS?
Go ahead, summarize.
So the main it's like a class action lawsuit. The main plaintiff, Molina, he was arrested illegally without a warrant. There's a certain policy that ICE has where they have to, in order to conduct a warrantless arrest, they need to make a probable cause assessment of a person's legal status, and then also whether or not this person is a flight risk. And the people that are named in this class action lawsuit, a lot of them were here legally, and they were still arrested, regardless of saying that like they had papers and that they were here legally. I think one quote specifically from the case, if I pull it up here, when Molina said he had papers, okay, it says, quote, when Escobar Molina repeatedly told officers that he, quote, had papers, the officers responded first by saying, no, you don't, you are illegal, and then by yelling, shut up, bitch, you're illegal. And this seems to be a thing that's like, this isn't just like an isolated incident here.
Okay.
I'd also like to piggyback real quick, just to say, like, I understand this dichotomy between how we treat our citizens and how we treat non-citizens, but I feel like something that we're leaving out is the degree to the maltreatment that we're seeing, right? So like the facial unconstitutionality of like picking somebody up despite them having papers, claiming that they didn't have papers, in some cases like sending them out to foreign prisons in countries that they don't even belong to, right? Like this kind of treatment that we're seeing of immigrant populations compared to like a white guy missing an opportunity to be hired in the most charitable framing of what you just presented. I just like facially, I just don't see the comparison at all in terms of like the kind of maltreatment that we're seeing under the, juxtaposing the two administrations.
Okay, well, I want to stick to the example because I asked for one, and Sean, and by the way, Sean, I don't want to talk over you. Feel free to jump in, whatever. But the thing about
sometimes, but go ahead, Sean, if you want to.
No, I was going to let Ryan.
Yeah. The thing about a case like Molina that I want to ask is, like, for example, I've been wrongfully detained by the police before. Like, they stopped me. I told them why they shouldn't stop me. I was nonetheless detained. It turned out they were wrong to detain me. Their reasonable suspicion, it turned out, was not reasonable. But I was detained nonetheless because when law enforcement officers enforce the law, they sometimes detain people who turn out not to have done the crime they're looking for or the action that they're trying to enforce against. So I guess my question is, like, what is it about ICE enforcing the law where you're doubtless going to have examples of ICE detaining somebody who they shouldn't have? That's what due process is for, is to sort that out, right? Like
Yeah,
that's why I got due
there's-
process, so that they couldn't detain me indefinitely based on the fact that I had done nothing wrong. But this is common in all law enforcement. It's not ICE specific.
Because, like I said, there's like a specific policy that a procedure that ICE has to go through where they make, firstly, the probable cause assessment that a person is here illegally, and then secondly, whether
Are
or
you
not
talking
they're
for
a flight risk.
arrest or for stop?
Warrantless arrests.
For warrantless arrest. Okay.
Yes.
Arrest,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
So go ahead.
like, there's this process that they have to do, and they're ignoring this process. In Molina versus DHS, even after the court issued, I think it was a preliminary injunction, they violated the preliminary injunction and didn't stop doing that in the district where they were enjoined from doing so.
Wasn't this also the case where they basically said that they could do it based off of reasonable suspicion, and then the Trump administration's argument in court was that they just didn't know what the fuck they were talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Or was this a different case?
Yeah.
So,
And what's the status of the case today?
I think they're pending the litigation on the actual order that they broke.
Because what happens in a lot of these cases, and I don't know how this one's going to turn out. Obviously, I'm not a mind reader. But what happens in a lot of these cases is that there's a very sensational headline about something that people find bad about ICE or enforcement or what have you. And then it percolates through the legal system, and then it goes up, and either the circuit court or the Supreme Court overrules them and says this is crazy. Like, I remember there was one case recently that Sean and I reviewed where the Fifth Circuit pointed out that 350 times district courts had done what they considered to be a egregiously bad interpretation of the law, and that's why they were issuing this ruling in order to correct it. So often, I'm not saying that's going to happen here. I don't know the details of this case
I feel
particularly, but I guess what I'm saying is I'm hesitant to infer from your description that there's some long-standing illegality when we don't know how the litigation's played out yet.
Okay, I want to let Lucas and Ryan respond to that, but I want to get Sean in here a little bit, right?
Yeah,
I want to
no.
see what he has to
Sorry.
say. But I want to give Lucas, just before you do that though, I want to give Lucas and Ryan a chance to respond to that, and then we can get Sean in here, please.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I like, if you're gonna say like this could be a bad ruling, like, yeah, any of these like district court rulings could be bad, but then you would have to provide the evidence that it is bad, and I don't see any reason why this would be like a bad ruling.
Also, just to be clear, like the information provided, I feel like is enough for us to at least colloquially make a determination of like ill intent by the Trump administration, right? When you have Greg Bovino coming out and saying that we don't need probable cause to make an arrest, we need reasonable suspicion. And then when they walk back all of those claims in court, I mean, like, that alone is pretty bad.
I would be cautious with stuff like that. Like, you bring up Bovino. How did you feel about when the district court ordered Bovino come in and give status reports in Chicago every day because they were so worried about what ICE was doing? A district court ordered that he come in every day and give the court in person a report. How did you feel about that ruling?
I feel like that's not. I asked a specific question, right? Like, when we're talking about the merits of this case, stopping warrantless arrests, and he says that we don't need to use probable cause for arrest, we can use reasonable suspicion.
Yes,
So,
and then
I mean,
the lower court will make a ruling on it, and they'll say this is either right or wrong. And I'm asking you, like, there's another.
We can't make a claim on that.
Well, I'm asking you about another case involving Bovino because I'm trying to see what your sense is about the court taking a remedy, like saying the director, or I forgot his title, but he had to come in every day and give a status report. Do you think that was a thing the court was right to have done?
I don't know specifically the procedure there, but I'm saying that like we can make a determination that ICE is behaving.
Yeah, I won't try to hide.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I want to make sure Rinyard gets his thing out, and I do want to get Sean in here too.
Yeah, no.
That case went up to the Seventh Circuit, And the Seventh Circuit said that the district court manifestly disregarded the separation of powers in the Constitution by issuing that order. Now, there might have been all kinds of things in that complaint that factually might rub us the wrong way, but then it turns out legally the district court was out of its mind. Right. And this is the thing that I think happens in these conversations, is that people talk about the splashy headline. I'm a lawyer. I write splashy cases sometimes where you're writing to get media attention. I understand how to do it. But then when it gets overturned, suddenly it's crickets.
Then
But anyways,
I mean,
you
I'm
would have
talking
to make the
about
argument
the
that this is
arguments that Trump
bad.
is making, though.
Okay, okay. I think we've gone over that. Sean, I want you to get in here. I want you to.
No, fair enough. No, I understand what you're saying with Trump or Bavino, and they all make their arguments, and then when they go to court, obviously that's not the argument they're making. Yeah, is that a good luck? Well, no, but also I think I have to routinely say this. Well, Trump said this, Trump said that. Yeah, Trump's a big fucking retard. Oh, sorry. Are we allowed to say?
You can say big fucking retard all you want.
Okay. He is at times.
True.
I don't like, most politicians are at the end of the day in one form or another. I'm not too worried about that. Like Bavino. Well, yeah, Bavino, he got dealt with and he's gone now. But yeah, there are some times where it's not been perfect. I think Ryan and I have talked about it. There's ways they've handled immigration. Yeah, I'm not 100% happy with, but overall, I think they are doing a very effective and legal methods of immigration as they proceed.
Yeah, this is.
I mean, in this
like-
case-
this is like
and
my-
also,
Yeah, this one does bad. If they are doing it, the court says bad, and everybody agrees on it's bad. On its face, does it sound bad? Sure. I don't know the nuts and bolts of that one. Could there be more to it? Maybe. But yeah, I would agree. On its face, if they're just kind of like, off the back of a napkin doing stuff, yeah, I can understand and agree that that's not right.
Okay,
But also
okay.
this
Just before,
is-
there's a lot of people who want to talk, and I want to get the order established. Lucas, Ryan, Rinald,
Mhm.
then Sean.
Okay.
Lucas, Ryan, Rinald,
There
Sean.
we go.
Go.
Yeah, like this is why I get like kind of frustrated sometimes with these things, because you can be like, oh, well, Trump's just a retard. He does things that like aren't the best policy sometimes. But like with like the AEA, like sending innocent people to torture prisons in El Salvador without like an ability to challenge that, I wouldn't brush off as just like a minor mistake in his immigration policy. I would argue that's like extremely malicious and bad.
Well, I'm not saying that's a mistake. I'm not putting that in that same category.
You don't think the
Like,
CCAT
I mean,
deportations were a
up
mistake?
until that point, like you do something, and whether or not you can do it, is it legal or not? Do I agree with the Supreme Court? Yes, they should have the right to challenge their alien designation. Yeah, and how do you challenge that? At a hearing. And then the next subsequent thing of, well, we'll give them like 5 minutes notice, and the Supreme Court had to come back and say no. And they need more notice than that. They need more time to prepare. They have a right to challenge it. Sure, that got challenged, and these people are allowed to challenge these things now.
Wait, so
I
do you
mean-
agree that CCAT wasn't? You said CCAT wasn't a mistake?
Well,
You're
no,
talking about the
like,
Alien
but
Enemies Act.
you were lumping in the idea of,
Yeah.
oh, Trump says a bunch of things, he's a big dumb retard. Like, no, like they sent them there. That wasn't like, oh, we're gonna spin the globe. Like, no, they sent them there.
No,
but
my-
what
I mean, like,
we're
that's-
getting
I'm
a
not
little bit. One thing that's getting lost here, by the way,
Mhm.
is that ultimately this is not a question of does Trump do bad things sometimes and good things sometimes. This is a would Harris have been better. So let's just grant that some of the stuff Trump does in the immigration context is too much, goes too far, has problems that you've raised. Let's grant that that's true for the sake of argument. Biden, on the other hand, just didn't enforce the border at all. He just let everybody in. So I guess the question I'm asking you is, do you prefer to live in a world where the border is just not enforced over one where it's enforced and sometimes over-enforced?
Well,
I mean, you can make an argument that he didn't enforce the border to like an ideal extent, but the idea that Joe Biden took no action on the border, I just don't think is true at
we
all. Like
literally
he signed
had,
that
like-
executive order that was getting stopped in the courts about like trying to funnel asylum seeking just to official ports of entry. He was still doing Title 42 removals, so like he was certainly doing actions. And I feel like we kind of lose a lot of the nuance whenever we boil this down to like, oh, Trump did a bad thing once. Well, not only was it a bad thing, it was like sending people to the tune of hundreds to a foreign country where they're not from, so to a place where we had information telling us that they would be tortured there. They never had an ability to challenge the merits on which they were deported. Like, I feel like boiling that down to, oh, Trump does a bad thing every once in a while I feel like that's just
First of all, they did have the right to challenge the merits. That's how the Supreme Court cases that Sean was just explaining to you happened. If they never had their day in court, it would never have gotten to the Supreme Court. So that's just factually untrue.
Well, just to be clear,
the second,
he didn't file that. It was the ACLU.
You just went on a rant. I'm gonna have to respond to the
Yeah.
100 things you already said. So now let me do that before you pile on more things I have to respond for. So obviously the people did have a day in court. Second, the idea that Biden was doing things on the border is ridiculous. The New York Post reported that he was told by his own administration that his policies would cause chaos and mass migration at the border, and he did nothing to stop it, which is exactly what he did. He was told this would happen, a memo was sent to him, and he did it anyway. So the idea that this is just like nothing and we should just walk it off is funny because you're engaging in the exact same behavior that you're projecting onto me, which is, oh yeah, Biden let in untold millions of people. Who knows? No big deal. Let's talk about Trump again. But the problem is ultimately you are going to have to make a comparison between these two people. And on immigration, I don't think that's a tough comparison to make. Trump wins every time.
We got to let Reynald respond to that. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you said that they had their day in court. You acknowledge that this person didn't get his day in court because he had an opportunity to talk to any of his lawyers or any of this. It was filed on behalf of a third party.
Who is this person?
JGG, the person who had the namesake of the class action against the Alien Enemies Act.
Is that the one that went to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did it get to the U.S. Supreme Court without him getting his day in court?
I'm pretty sure it was the case that somebody filed litigation on behalf of him. He never had an opportunity to do that independently, right?
Lawyers always file on behalf of their clients. That's what lawyers do. My clients almost never go to court. I go to court for them.
Well, there was never any interaction between this person and their lawyer, and there had already been like 3 planes shipped off to CCOT prior to this action even beginning litigation, because ICE never gave these people the ability to talk to any of their lawyers, right? So this idea, but just because it went to court,
hold on, Ryan, you got to let him respond
Yeah.
without interrupting. Go ahead, Ryan.
This is what Sean was just explaining.
Hold on, you got to let Reynald finish before you interrupt. I promise.
I mean, the idea that this just substantiates due process isn't upheld by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court shot him down, and the idea that like just because a case ended up being brought, that somehow disregards the amount of people that were already sent to the place that we knew they would be tortured. This is absurd.
Now you can respond.
Your argument is, and I take the point that they should have had more due process in the first instance, and I actually agree with you. I think the Supreme Court got that right. But the way that the system works is the executive takes an action, then there's litigation. It goes up to the Supreme Court. As Sean explained to you, the Supreme Court ruled against Trump in those instances, and then the policy changed. So, like when you're saying he doesn't get his day in court, yeah, I would agree with you. It would have been better if he got his day in court in advance, but he got his day in court eventually.
After he got shipped off to a torture prison. Like,
you got to let Ryan.
The question then becomes the same one I asked earlier, and again, no interaction on this point. Are you more comfortable with just having no enforcement on the border versus having border enforcement with, yes, I'll grant you some over enforcement and some overzealous enforcement? So second time, how can you possibly say that Trump is worse on the border when Biden didn't even enforce the border?
Because I'm rejecting the precedent or the premise in that question that Biden didn't enforce the border. I mean, I acknowledge that you said that there was a memo from his administration saying that he wasn't doing it ideally, but like you do understand, or you do agree that Title 42 removals were happening under Biden, right?
We had governors having fights over shipping busloads of migrants from these endless caravans. The governor of Texas, I'm sending them to Martha's Vineyard, and we had to watch people in Martha's Vineyard lose their goddamn minds over this. Like, this was an unchecked issue, that it was an endless stream of people. Like, okay, some things were happening, but you can't deny that this was out of control at that point, and these states were all of a sudden saying, oh, well, no, we don't want people here now. You saw it with Eric Adams. He talked a big game until they started flooding the streets of New York City, and then all of a sudden he changed his mind about who he supported. So this idea that, he was doing something, he really wasn't doing anything at all.
Well, let's look at the counterfactual, right? So the idea is that at, these border encounters, the border encounter numbers were going up at the end of Trump. They continued up under Biden. And then at the end of Biden's term, they ended up falling back down. I have no reason to believe that if we elected Harris, that the trend wouldn't have continued, right? This idea that Donald Trump is better because there was an influx under Biden. And also, I noticed there was no answer there. There were Title 42 removals happening under Biden. There were immigration efforts happening under Biden, right?
He did some removals, but it's like...
One at a time.
He did a handful of removals, but he let like a million people in.
Yeah.
Like, okay, oh, he removed a couple people. Great.
I was being slightly hyperbolic.
If
I'm not taking the position that there was literally no enforcement at any point ever in the 4-year period. But the point I'm making is that the crossings under Biden were in the millions. They were in the millions per year. Under Trump, it's
millions per year.
A tiny fraction of that. Yes.
Where are you getting the millions per year number?
Google it. Like, look it up. Like, do you
think you're citing encounters?
Do you remember the migrant caravans?
Sure.
Like, do you remember Texas trying to set up barbed wire because they were so concerned that the Biden administration wasn't doing anything about it? And then I guess more importantly, you mentioned that the numbers went down at the end of the Biden administration. Why? Why did they go down?
Probably just because there was a natural because Joe Biden ended up cracking down further on at the end of his term. Second, because there was probably just a massive influx from sending people to Mexico for like 5 years because of Title 42. So there was probably people stockpiled there that were coming here. A lot of the encounter numbers were overinflated because we would send somebody back, they would come back, and then we would send somebody back, and that's like 3 encounters. So encounter numbers are just a bad way to measure it. I mean, it's a billion different reasons to act like it's because of anything else.
Why didn't he crack down earlier? Why did he wait till the very end of his presidency to crack down?
Because he doesn't want to do it through like executive power. That was something that he didn't believe in.
Because it was costing him an election. It was costing him an election. That's why he was cracking down.
That's
possible too.
Just real quick. I want to get Lucas in here.
I was just going to mention, because in 2024 that's when he used executive power to do like the asylum ban or whatever. And I think Kamala was going to continue like that policy of harsher border enforcement after Biden was presumably going to leave office.
Why?
I don't know, because it's most likely because it's unpopular, and I think also Biden and Harris both don't want mass immigration in the way that we saw it during Biden's term.
I mean, Harris committed to the Langford bill, right?
How could you say that Biden didn't want it when Biden enabled it? Like Biden was the one who didn't enforce the border, and as a result, we had the mass migration. So how could you possibly say Biden didn't want it? Was he just like?
Wait.
I mean, and again, he was sent a memo that told him this would happen, and then he did it anyway. So like, why would you say he didn't want this? The evidence seems to be to the contrary.
Oh, I thought Renee was going to respond there.
The reason is because he didn't want to use executive power to do it. He wanted to pass a bill through Congress, but Congress wasn't willing to give him the bill.
Power.
Yeah,
Biden
he didn't want to use it.
Executive power
on the border.
Oh, no, he's been using it everywhere else. All of a sudden, he's like, "Well, no, I can't use that here." I mean, he's been using executive power as he desired.
We had Title 42 in place. By the time Title 42 expired in 2023, they were trying to pass a bill to codify certain provisions to keep people away as long as there was a giant influx. This seems pretty consistent. I mean, was it ideal? No, but like this idea that he wasn't doing anything is just made up.
Well, can you name for me, and if you can't, that's fine, but can you name for me like what when people criticize Biden for his abuses of executive power, and people do criticize him for that, what did they criticize him for?
I know a lot of people didn't like the DEI policy and the vaccine mandates that were given through, what was it, OSHA?
Yeah. Like imposing a nationwide vaccine mandate. I appreciate the honesty, by the way, through executive action without congressional imprimatur and against Congress's wishes, attempting to forgive $500 billion of student loans without Congress's imprimatur and against its wishes, attempting to regulate the coal industry out of existence without Congress's imprimatur and against its wishes. So I guess the question that Sean raised that I'm piggybacking on is, well, if Biden's so careful about executive power, why is he so reluctant to use executive power in the context of immigration, where the executive power is at its absolute zenith? Foreign policy, border, war, that's core executive stuff. But he's so willing to use his executive power when it comes time to make decisions about domestic internal policy, where his power as the executive should be at its nadir.
Sure. So the first thing is that Joe Biden did flirt with using executive power on the border. Like I said, he signed that executive order to funnel asylum seekers just to official ports of entry. It ended up getting shot down in the courts. So he did flirt with it. And the answer is probably just because it's more effective policy-wise, right? Like, so let's say that you sign an executive order to completely shut down asylum seeking, and it just gets overwritten by the next administration or the next Democrat in power, right? Like that executive order is probably not even going to super efficiently solve your policy aim. Whereas like if you want the most amount of people to be vaccinated in order to stop this sort of, you know, pandemic from ravaging the country or whatever, an executive order to say that OSHA should mandate it would actually probably do that fairly effectively. And whether or not that was like facially constitutional or whether or not he even agreed with it, I'm not even certain. But the separate question is like, what is the end goal of doing this? The like this sort of action on the border just doesn't even seem like, I feel like there's almost no argument that we do need some sort of comprehensive legislation to change a lot of the processes at the border. That's what Joe Biden was trying to do instead of executive order.
Well, so the vaccine mandate and the student loan debt forgiveness are interesting examples. And I think I want to make sure I'm steel manning what you said correctly. It would be effective to do those because they're essentially irreversible, right? Like if people got the vaccine or if the debt was forgiven, even if another administration came in later and wanted to do something different, it's already happened. You can't really put the toothpaste back in the bottle. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I would argue that his inaction on the border had the same effect. Once you let the people into the country, finding and deporting them creates an ungodly, difficult to handle mess, which has been the mess that Trump has been trying to clean up. But it is very, very hard to fix that. Like if you let them in, they're in, and finding them and deporting them is a huge effort. So yeah, I am deeply suspicious of the fact that President Biden was so willing to use executive power when it was irrevocable, and then on the border, I can't use executive power here, but I can let people in, even though I know it's going to be almost impossible to fix.
Well, when you say let people in, I feel like we're standing in a lot, right? Like it's not the idea that there was nobody at the border turning people around or anything.
I mean,
It's this idea,
they were
hey, we're
literally
kind of
pulling a barbed
substituting.
wire
Well, let Renaud finish and then let you go.
Great point, Sean.
Comments, right? Yeah.
We're kind of substituting two different groups, right? Like asylum seekers and border gotaways. This idea that there was like, I don't even know if there was a giant influx of gotaways under Joe Biden. I've never seen that to be the case. It's possible, but like this idea that it's impossible to track people down because we're conflating with them being gotaways is just not true, right? Like the most amount of people that were coming here, most of the encounters were either people that we turned away from Title 42 or people who came here to seek asylum. And I feel like we have a pretty decent way of telling who was here seeking asylum, especially considering I think Biden kept some of the forensic checks that Trump put in place in his first term to more easily tell what people are here, like do easier background checks. So like, I don't know if it's the case that letting people seek asylum to these levels is going to create like this giant, massive, unsolvable problem with deportations.
Well,
Also,
I don't know
I can't
what
tell.
It's just a housekeeping thing, real quick.
Is there a
Is there
siren?
like a ringing sound?
I was gonna say, do you have a tornado
Yeah,
warning?
I have a siren outside. I assume it's a tornado warning.
Oh,
I
well, if
don't
you have to have
know.
a tornado, go.
You know what? This
Shelter.
probably wouldn't have happened under the Harris administration.
I think it's a watch,
True.
so I'm safe and I'm in a safe location,
Okay.
but I can mute if it's too bad.
Okay, yeah. I want to give it to Sean,
No,
though.
just be careful.
And just real quick, be good, no slurs. I got to use the restroom real quick. But Sean,
Okay.
the floor is yours. Go ahead.
All right. No, seriously, I hope you're okay. But there were things where, we had Texas was like, okay, well, if you're not going to do anything, we're going to put barbed wire on the border because we're on the border. And then what happens? You see pictures of literally backhoes yanking up chunks of barbed wire to let people scamper through. I mean, if the government really cared and Biden really cared, he'd be like, no, I'm not going to get in the way of that. It's barbed wire. Let it sit there. They clearly were not involved in that. I mean, the idea that, I want Congress to do something. Well, in the meantime, you could still act, and then if Congress does what it needs to do, you can go like, okay, cool. Congress has acted. I'm going to stop. But he didn't stop. But he didn't do it. He just sat there and let it happen. I mean, we had endless caravans. And then you notice, yes, once the election season heated up, well, yeah, oh, wow, now we're really going to be serious about it. But we had years and years of nothing happening. And like I said, we had these slap fights with these governors who, using all of this as it's like owning each other, they kept on just shuttling people all over the place. That's not, that was a sign of how bad it was getting. I just think that's clear he didn't care. And I think Kamala Harris probably would have been in the same boat. I mean, she never came out and said, well, yeah, I think that was all bad. Actually, Joe did a lot of things wrong. I would actually change it differently.
But well, I mean, Harris did commit to signing that bill if it was put on her desk, right? Yeah, and like, I feel like there's a burden shift happening right now as well, where like, if you didn't want to put barbed wire on the border, that means you weren't enforcing the border. I'm expecting that.
Well, I mean, where did all the caravans go? The fence to let people through, it seems like you don't care.
Yeah, I mean, about the Kamala thing, do you guys like deny that Kamala did run on like closing the border and being pretty harsh on immigration?
No one believed her.
Why
no one believed her about almost anything. Because she lied to us constantly. Because she lied to us constantly about who she was and what her platform was. Like,
okay,
she ran as Joe Biden. Sorry, just to give you like a little history. In California, she ran as a tough on crime AG. Then in 2020, she's suddenly to the left of Chairman Mao, and she's running as a progressive, telling the ACLU that she would favor gender reassignment surgeries at the border, calling Joe Biden a segregationist, by the way. Then when she tries to pivot towards the center. In between those two things, she lies to us and tells us that Joe Biden is sharp as a tack, that Joe Biden outpaces his staffers, that Joe Biden is absolutely not in cognitive decline, despite what we saw at the debate and despite what was written in the Her report about Joe Biden's mental capacity. So yeah, nobody believed that she was going to do what she was saying and that her policy platform was anything other than DNC positioning propaganda, because she had never given any reason for anyone to think that she was genuine about anything.
Wait, okay, so do
we really even have this debate then if we can't tell what she wants?
In 2024,
Lucas,
as Biden,
sorry, I just got here.
Yeah, as Biden was trying to crack down the border, which you guys agree he did that at the end of his term, and then Kamala also ran on that as well and said she would continue these policies. I don't know what indication like you're getting that she would just go back on these all of a sudden when she gets elected.
Well, because Biden did it on purpose. He opened the border on purpose. He was told not to do it, and he did it on purpose. Then there was a political calculation where they're trying to win an election, so they're trying to position themselves to win an election. But the question is, how do you think she would govern? And she had a major role in the border process under the Biden administration. We saw what the outcome was. I don't believe her personally. So why would I give her the benefit of the doubt when she tells me that she's going to do something that the previous administration could have done at any time, didn't, and now suddenly we're supposed to say, oh yes, good. Well, I'm glad, Comrade Harris, that you're finally going to use executive action. You're going to do something about the border after complaining about Trump doing the exact same thing and making that the centerpiece of Joe Biden's presidency, was reversing everything Trump did in his first term, including border enforcement. I quite frankly think it's almost a risible claim that anyone should have believed her on that.
I mean, I don't even know what the point of coming to a Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump debate is if we're just not going to even look at what Kamala Harris was saying that she was going to do. If we're just going to disregard everything that Kamala Harris ran on as not believable, then I don't even know how we can have this debate.
If we could demonstrate she's a liar, then yeah, we could say, like, look,
I can demonstrate Trump's a liar too. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to believe his policy positions.
So then by your logic, since Trump said you can't trust anything Trump says, well, I can't trust anything Harris says, what do? Sit here and silence the rest of the time?
Like, I guess if we can't concede to the policy that Kamala Harris said she would pass, I mean, like, if we can't take the word of what she said she was going to pass, I don't know why we would come to even evaluate who would be a better candidate, because it's like a grand mystery.
Okay.
Wait, this is ridiculous.
This
is ridiculous. Trump said the conflict in Iran is going to end in like 6 weeks. Do you think it will? You believe him because he said it? Trump said the conflict in Iran is going to wrap up every day because they gave him very valuable gifts worth millions of dollars. Do you believe him when he said that?
I think it could end. I have no idea. The fact that he keeps shifting the burden, I don't know.
Okay, so the point I'm making that I think is pretty obvious is that, of course, you don't believe Trump. I don't believe Harris. We're here nonetheless to talk about who we think would be better. The idea that me not believing Harris is a reason that we can't have the conversation is insane.
Okay.
Well, it's
I got a couple
believing
super
Harris
chats.
about
Hold on, just
potential.
real quick,
Sorry,
Renell.
go ahead.
I got to make a little money here. Okay, we got a couple super chats. I don't want to forget, like I did last night. So we're gonna go through a few of them. Okay. We got $20 from Pondering
Ooh,
Politics. Thank you,
nice.
buddy. For the $20. Says talk just popped in with breaking news. In case you're talking about constitutionality yet, but Trump says he's signing an executive order for Mullen to pay TSA without Congress, defying the Anti-Deficiency Act. Sending you a DM with the tweet, Whick. Well, thank you for the DM. I got that. $5 from Lord of the Nerds to say, kindly ask the gaslighting lib children what exactly their personal limits on immigration are and if they personally want lower immigration. And then we have $5 from Deadly Sin. Make Ryan explain why he wouldn't vote for Trump because of January 6th, but now defends every single Trump policy. We'll get to that. $5 from AI Tuned In to say, framing this by pretending ICE are making legitimate mistakes is disingenuous. How does he feel about the woman in the car killed? Was this also legit? And then $5 from Audacity.
I assume he's saying Renee Good.
Yeah, I'm
He says the
assuming that.
woman. Okay.
Yeah. $5 from Audacity to say, no, she wouldn't. All right, just saved everyone 2 hours. You're welcome. No, stay. We're going to have the conversation. And then finally, $5 from Hell's Pacifist. Does Ryan not understand that ICE has been given the mandate to racially profile people? We just started, and he's already losing. Well, thank you for the $5. And thank you for the 5 gift memberships from A.K.A. Batozai.
Good name. Good name. AKA Batosai. That's a solid name. Look, at the end of the day, when asked, Harris said in an interview that there is nothing she would change from the Biden administration. She said no daylight, she would do the exact same thing. So if she would enforce the border vigorously for 4 years, she was lying either when one of those 2 times. She was lying when she said there's nothing she would change, or she was lying when she said that she was going to be tough on the border to the extent that she did. I don't remember the exact comment you're referencing. But you can't believe both those statements, right?
No, you can't. She wanted to sign the Langford bill. Joe Biden was pushing to sign the Langford bill. She wanted to sign the Langford bill. The Langford bill was fairly conservative, so that's probably the hard crackdown that she wanted.
The Langford bill was not a hard crackdown. The Langford bill was a
certainly
choke.
was shutting down the border after a certain amount of encounters.
After how many encounters?
It was a couple thousand, I think, over the span of a week.
A couple thousand per
it's like
what?
5,000 a day.
5,000 a day. We currently average less than that per month. So the law,
after
the law purported to give the executive power he already had only when there was an emergency of 5,000 per day, when the executive already had that power. And in fact, you could argue that that was actually stripping executive power because they could already do it. They didn't need the law. And the metric essentially was measured in Joe Biden catastrophic numbers. 5,000 per day is
it's 1.8 million.
That's literally more than we have a month now. So
didn't they also
generously they can shut down the border at 5,000 a day. Fuck, man.
Didn't they also say that certain Border Patrol agents could act as immigration judges? Like, I don't even support that, but that's like a pretty far step right in terms of litigating asylum cases, right?
So yes, a law could have a good thing and a critical flaw that warrants opposing it. Just because it has the good thing doesn't mean you should want it or vote for it.
In this case, your critical flaw is doing nothing, right? Like, if you're saying that this is going to be ineffectual because you can only do it past 5K, well, in that case, it just does nothing. That's not a critical flaw.
Yes,
but if you want, in order to litigate more immigration judges, right?
Because it said that the president gets emergency powers at 5K. The president already has those powers. So actually what it did is
to shut down asylum claims?
It took those powers away from the president. No, to shut down the crossings, the border. The president said that the president could not take those emergency actions until we got to the 5,000 per day level. But the president already has that power. So that was actually a restriction on executive power to fix the border. It was a bad bill.
I feel like
I'm not even certain if that's true, because when Trump did that in his second term,
then Lucas, go ahead.
The first thing, when Trump tried to do that in the second term, suspend entry into the southern border, I'm pretty sure he got shot down on that. So I'm not certain that that is true. And then second, I'm pretty sure that bill gave you the ability to just turn people around past that amount of encounters. So that is way broader than anybody understands the executive power to exist right now, right? You would get like not even allow people to seek asylum at that point, right?
Well, we're doing that
You'd
right
literally
now.
just be turning people right around.
Like
That's
and
actually
also I feel like
Supreme
we're
Court just dealt with
Hold
that.
on,
We're
let
doing it right
Sean
now.
respond.
Hold on,
Hold on, Lucas,
yeah.
Lucas, please let Sean respond,
Oh, my bad.
and then Lucas, you can go. I promise. Go ahead.
Well, I mean,
Sean.
that's actually happening right now. It's called metering. They're literally turning people back away from the border, and the Supreme Court just they just addressed that. And I mean, if I had to guess, they're probably going to say the government can do that. Just
Okay.
from
Yeah,
listening to the
I
oral
don't
arguments.
know.
I
why
got
we're
shut down
acting-
on that specific
Yeah,
thing.
I don't know why we're acting like the only provision was the shutdown of the border after like a certain number of crossings. Like there's also no amnesty period. There were more ICE agents, more Border Patrol agents, double the deportation flights. There's like a laundry list of like provisions in this bill, and we're acting like the only thing that it did was like shut down the border after a certain amount of crossings.
because that's the problem with it. Like if someone said like, I have a great bill. Here are the things that the bill does. It gives a lot of money to teachers. It lowers your taxes, and it creates a residence for Al Qaeda in the country that is a no-fly zone where police are not a go, and they can just build a base. And you're like, well, don't you want the money for the teachers? Like, yeah, a bill can have things I like and things I don't like, and the fact I'm focusing on the reason why it was a bad bill because it's the reason why it was a bad bill.
Wait, so
That's
how
not a
does
weird
how does this one provision in the bill about shutting down the border at like after a certain amount of thousand like negate like all the other provisions in it?
because
like,
you
about...
have to let because you got the 5,000 per day. That's the problem. You got the 5,000 per day that are already coming in before the emergency powers kick in.
Sure, but like I said, there's still like there's more ICE agents, there's more Border Patrol agents, there's more.
We have more ICE
deportation,
agents
like,
now.
I know, but this
Why do we need to let in 5,000
people?
people? Why can't we just have more ICE agents?
Yeah,
Why, it's also
like,
encounters.
Why do we have to do
not,
this
it's
one
not
really shitty
admissions?
thing?
It's encounters.
This is Sean just asked the $1 million question. Like, why do we have to get to 5,000? Why include that at all? Why is that necessary?
Because you probably don't want the president to shut down the border for nothing, right?
So you agree that this bill was taking the power from because you earlier told me this was not limiting executive power. So this clearly was limiting executive power.
Because
right?
I'm rejecting that the president could just shut the border down for nothing.
Okay, so you don't think
got stopped on doing that.
You don't. Okay, so but earlier you had said that you thought that this was not restricting executive power. Now you're saying it is restricting executive power and it's a good thing. I'm just pointing out.
No, I'm saying that the executive never had that power. I'm saying that executive power didn't exist. He doesn't have the power to just shut the border down for nothing.
Okay, so in summary, if we're going to if we're going to move to the conversation, we have Biden's record. We have a bill that the audience can figure out whether or not they think these are good reasons to reject or not. But regardless, was clearly a political election ploy. And the question was, who do we think would be better on immigration? And I again, what I'm hearing from you guys is I don't even know. Like, are you?
Well, let's just ask it directly.
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand if you think that on the subject of immigration specifically, that Kamala Harris would have been better than Trump. Okay.
Clearly.
Explain why.
Yeah, because I generally like immigration. I don't dislike immigration, so that's why, like, evidently I would enjoy Kamala Harris's policy more. Because under Trump we have no...
Yeah, I think it's because mass deportations are retarded, and if there's one person that I would explicitly not trust with doing them, it's Donald Trump, right? The idea that we're authorizing ICE to break into private property without a judicial warrant right now on the guise of mass deportations, right? Like the idea that we're justifying, again, people being sent by the hundreds to a foreign torture prison. I feel like we kind of keep bypassing how severe of a fucking thing that is. Like 90% of the really bad action from Donald Trump is like, I would much prefer like increased immigration levels or increased asylum seeking levels than Donald Trump literally permitting the violating of our Constitution on the guise of mass deportations.
Okay, and same question in reverse, I guess, to Sean and to Ryan. So you don't think that Harris would have been better on immigration specifically. Explain why.
Sean, you want to go first or second?
I'll go first. I mean, we literally saw the action. I know Biden didn't call her the border czar, but that was kind of the name that. Anyway, she was involved in like whatever it was, trying to address the issues of migration and why it was happening since like 2021. And literally, we get to before the election, oh shit, we'd better get this under wraps so we can gain some points in the polls. I mean, it's very clear that's what happened. So I don't buy any of the sincerity of saying, "Oh, well, now I'm really serious." It took us 3 years to figure out, "Oh God, that thing we should have done is now time to do it." No, I mean, that's very cynical, and I think it's very clear what was going to happen there. And the idea that, I'm really going to enforce this thing and stick on what I promised literally in the past, like, 3 months. I mean, I don't think you can trust any politician that does that all of a sudden like that.
Fair enough.
Right.
Just to be clear, I want to make sure that these like little mini closings on the specific issues are brief, right? And so I don't mean to cut you guys off, but I just want to, in the interest of getting to other topics.
Well, I think that we actually had the honest answer given earlier, which I think is true. Like, if you are in favor of open borders and don't really think that we should enforce border policy, then yeah, you would prefer Harris and Biden. If you are not that person, you probably would not. And I think that's probably the fairest way to do it. And look, like ultimately, and I know we don't know each other, there's tons of stuff that Trump has done that I'm happy to critique. The due process thing with the Alien Enemies Act was actually something that I was up in arms about at the time. So like these are things I agree with you that are bad. The concern that I have is it's like, imagine you're at a party and somebody picks up the punch bowl and they just dump it all over the floor. And then somebody else starts cleaning it up and the first person starts yelling, "No, don't clean it up like that." At a certain point, you got to be like, well, I am worried about how the cleanup is being done, but it seems to me that we should talk about why there's punch all over the floor. And if we're not going to have an assessment of that, we're not going to get anywhere.
Well,
okay. Before we get to the other issues that I think that we should cover when it comes to the topic of Harris versus Trump, $5 from EDW Raptor to say potentially criminal. Is that the big guy Rakita yelled at? Were you yelled at?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. I'm curious about that, but I won't go too much into it. $5 from Mr. Gamerman. Does Ryan believe that Biden is trying to extend Title 42? Is Biden just allowing them to cross a border? I don't know why border's in there twice, but fair enough.
Border.
That's what he says. You can answer that if you want.
I was talking about the idea. I've been correctly called out on the fact that I said no enforcement, which was hyperbolic, and then I said I was being somewhat hyperbolic. Okay. But in any event.
Fair enough. $2 from Lord of the Nerds. 5K a day equals 1,825,000 people for a year. People a year for low IQ libs. Thank you for the $2. And then finally, $10 from Ranting Mike. Hi, Whick, your number one soldier here. $10 isn't going to get you into the number one soldier class, by the way, but thank you for the $10. Mullally's personal grievances with border bills are irrelevant. It had bipartisan support and was tanked on instruction from Trump to prolong the issue for his campaign. You can respond to that if you like.
It was a bad bill. He tanked it because it was a bad bill. And then he got the expansion of ICE later without having to accept the bad stuff in the bad bill. It also was good for him politically. I mean, it can be multiple things.
Okay. Outside, because I think we've gone over the immigration.
Can I respond to the punch bowl thing really quick?
You can respond to the punch bowl.
Okay.
Thing. Go ahead.
Okay. The punch bowl example to me is like, let's say like someone's at the party and someone spills over a punch bowl, and then everybody collectively at the party just like beats the shit out of and like tortures the person who like spilled the punch bowl, and then Ryan's over here like, well, maybe we should have asked like why they spilled the punch bowl in the first place. I feel like that's like it's just like a different world. I feel like for comparison.
True.
Yeah, but of course you say that because you said earlier that you don't think immigration, mass migration is actually a problem. So in your example, yeah, it's just spilling the punch and then somebody's taking police actions. It was a metaphor. It's like, so if we can play the metaphor game,
it's your metaphor.
I know, and then you changed it. So like, I'll change it too. Like, well, I'll just make spilling the punch bowl worse. The issue that you're revealing is that you were happy to change the enforcement part of the metaphor, but not the spilling the punch part of the metaphor. And the reason you changed one and not the other is because you just admitted earlier you don't think that mass migration is a problem. You think it's a good thing. So, like, of course you would treat it that way, but that's just revealing
If that
your
was the case,
preference.
wouldn't we change the metaphor? Wouldn't we change the metaphor to move away from the punch bowl spilling if we didn't think it was a problem? Wouldn't we say that the punch bowl never spilled?
No, he said the punch bowl spilled, and then people beat the shit out of him because he's minimizing the problem and maximizing the problem with the cleanup effort.
By pretending like the cleanup effort.
Hold on, just real quick. Sean needs space.
Just like 1 minute. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Do your thing. Oh, you need to go address something in real life. I thought you meant on.
Yes, I have an IRL thing. I'll be right back.
Do your thing.
Yeah,
we'll get back.
I'll hold down the fort, Sean.
Yeah.
But I mean, Whick, I know you. It sounds like you wanted to segue to a new topic.
Yes,
I would love in one of these topics for them to actually.
I think we've covered immigration, right?
Okay.
Sure. Hold on. Just real quick, right? You brought up the immigration thing, so I want to give the other side a chance to bring up something that they think that Trump is significantly worse on, just so we have some parity here. So go ahead. I'll give Rinyald and Lucas an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I guess
there's a big bowl to choose from.
Yeah, I guess I guess I'll just go with like the seditious six. Like, do you think like under a Kamala presidency, she would have been calling for the death of political opponents?
I've never defended that comment. I think that one of the things I'll agree with you on is that I'm trying to answer your question. One of the things that I will agree with you on is that Trump's rhetoric is worse than Kamala's rhetoric in terms of tone and in terms of inappropriate content. I would not fight you on that.
Okay, is calling for the
do we see like I feel like we should be able to see like the claim that we made is that, don't you think it's like destructive to the country, like driving a wedge between the two sides for Donald Trump to be calling for the death of sitting Congress people? And the answer to that was, I don't support that. I think his rhetoric is bad, right? Like I feel like the downplaying is insane.
No. What I'm doing is that I'm balancing the fact that I do not like what Trump said. I don't think he should have said it. Legally, it is not sedition, and you will not be able to prosecute any of them for sedition. He was flatly wrong and inappropriate for saying it. With the fact that the seditious six, if we're going to use the name, were absolutely out of their mind to make the statements that they made. They were telling soldiers to risk their livelihoods and perhaps go to jail. If you gave that advice to soldiers, the guy who's going to push the button on the boat strike, and he said, you know what, I'm going to disobey this order, he would go to jail. It's a shitty thing that they said. I do not like that Trump said shitty things when calling it out. But the reason that I'm saying there's a little bit more to the story is because what they said was outrageous, and was also shitty.
Okay, what you're not acknowledging with that is you're saying that like this is just words from Trump, but we saw actual action from this. Like Pete Hegseth tried to reduce Mark Kelly's retirement pay and censure him, and then the DOJ actually tried to indict these people in seditious conspiracy. That's not just words; that's like an actual retaliatory action taken against them.
They have a good argument for reducing his pay for conduct on becoming an officer. It's not. I'm not sure they're going to win, but there's a decent argument for that.
No, but my argument is that it wasn't just words; it was actual action.
Because what he was doing as an officer was grossly inappropriate. Was grossly inappropriate to say what he said. And to be clear, like, I understand that he phrased it in a way that is going to avoid the worst liability that could come. If he had said, you should disobey the orders as to the boat strikes, he would have had a very serious amount of consequences coming his way as a officer. He phrased it in a way that was legalistic and careful, and I understand that, and I understand that that's going to benefit him. But what he said was shitty. He was advocating for soldiers to put their lives and livelihoods at risk so that he could score political points. It was a shitty thing to say.
Okay,
it can be shitty, but the DOJ trying to charge these people for it.
You're not acknowledging the second part there, where there was an actual indictment that they tried to secure on these people. That's not just words.
Seditious conspiracy.
Yeah.
And it was a bad indictment. I criticized it. I have a show with Rob Noor. You can watch it. I was highly critical of that. Okay. There are things about Trump I don't. There are things about Trump I don't like.
That's just very unsatisfying to
Okay.
to like respond to that with just like, oh, I was critical of this. I just don't like it. Like, do you not see this as like seriously corrosive to our democracy when the president is trying to do this to his political opponents?
When I said that Kamala Harris was trying to enact racism into law, what was your response?
We talked about the border. There's a lot going
Did
on
you
there.
did you take it with particular seriousness? Did that strike you as a real concern, or did you downplay that?
I mean, we can do the whataboutism, but like we're
Well,
talking about Trump
I'm just saying,
seditious
like
acts right now.
you're in a debate.
Well,
and
to be fair, this whole panel is which is worse,
True,
so it's okay
yeah.
to compare the two.
Yeah.
Okay, just
Yeah,
to be like, whataboutism doesn't really apply here because
Yeah,
that's what we're
yeah,
doing.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
just
there
sharing
is a
videos.
calculus that is made between two things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you don't find it serious that the Harris-Biden administration was attempting to enact like overt racism and bigotry into law. Maybe that's fine with you, but it
'cause I
was not
disagree
fine
with
with a
the-
lot of people.
I disagree with the characterization that this is just like
Okay,
overt racism
I
and
gave
bigotry.
you like a bunch of examples. Which one would you like to talk about?
Give me one.
Okay. There was a COVID farm relief program where money was given only to Black farmers early on. It was blocked by courts because it was overtly unconstitutional. Would you like to defend that one?
Yeah, sure. It's trying to uplift Black farmers. I don't see why this is like an overt like racism bigotry thing that you're framing it as.
So if the government treats one group of people, one group of citizens differently, and another group of citizens worse on the basis of race, that's not troubling to you?
No, because like Black and white people have historically had different conditions in the United States. So like trying to give Black people like a hand up, I wouldn't necessarily consider like racism or bigotry.
Okay.
It's just trying to level the playing field. I would
So
disagree with the
are
characterization.
so you are okay with the government treating some people differently on the basis of race as long as they were historically oppressed?
If you want to characterize it like that, then sure. But
Okay. Well, then you can't be surprised that for those of us who disagree with that statement, because I don't think, by the way, that you're out of line. I think that that's the mainstream Democratic view. But for those of us who think that that was racism and that we are concerned by it, could you see how that might influence our votes? That like, I mean, I actually didn't vote for Trump, but like, do you see how that might make people be like, God, I really don't want Harris to be in power because I think she's going to enact racism into law, and I am not willing to excuse it in the way that you just did. Does that concern resonate at all?
I don't really care about like what influences voters in this conversation. I care about which one of these things is worse.
It's much worse to enact racism into law than to say mean things about the seditious six and try to indict them and fail. It's much worse.
We're comparing not giving money to certain groups versus indicting.
Well,
also to be clear, we did give money to non-Black farmers as well. The Inflation Reduction Act did give money to non-Black farmers as well. So I mean, like just having a specific subset going to Black farmers, I mean, you could say that it's enacting racism into law or whatever. But what I mean, I know you're going to hate this, all right? Because we look at the consequences of that action. Right. I feel like the consequences of Donald Trump calling for the death of sitting Congress people and trying to put them in jail for seditious conspiracy and like having a specific apportionment of the funds going to Black farmers and indigenous farmers. I feel like the comparison between the two, even though I think it may be like these two policies aren't the greatest to compare against each other, I still feel like that even, wanes off in the direction of Harris.
OK, so what exactly was the consequence that the seditious six suffered by having these indictments that never went anywhere? Like what is the thing?
Death threats from the Trump administration. The idea that it's okay for the president to come out and call for the death of Congress people because they make statements that he thinks is shitty. Like that's insanity.
Okay,
and the idea that this is also going to super normalize a lot of conservative statements as well, right? Like we've been seeing a lot of the normalization of more valiant rhetoric from the right as well. So the rhetoric from the president has downstream effects onto the voting populace.
Whereas the policy that you're downplaying normalized actual racism. Like actual racism. We are going to use, and not like we're going to fail. We're going to use the force of law and give money only to Black and indigenous farmers and not white farmers under the program I referenced. I understand there's multiple COVID programs. Like you're more concerned about something that didn't happen than something that did.
What do you mean I'm more concerned about something that didn't happen? They did try to get the indictment.
They failed to get the indictment. No one was indicted. They failed.
Go ahead,
I had
Sean,
to step
please.
away for a second. I'm sorry. Are we talking about the farmers or are we talking about
we're talking about what
glowy
has
congressman.
happened
I mean, that's
is
how I was
that
confused where we're
Lucas
at.
brought up the seditious six as something that Trump
Yes.
did that is worse than anything Harris did,
Mhm.
and to counter that, Ryan has brought up the this specific COVID era bill that gave money allegedly to only black
Okay.
people,
I
right? As a
Not
comparison.
not
you
allegedly.
guys moved so far when I had to go
Yeah.
take care of something, so I
Um,
got a little lost here.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah. No,
So
the
that's where we
po-
are, just to kind of
Okay.
center everything.
the
here we
meta
are.
point was that I had said that I didn't like that Trump's comment and that I publicly criticized him after making the comments about the seditious six and that I thought the prosecutions were ridiculous and doomed to fail and were a bad idea. And I'd said all that publicly. And then they were saying, well, if you're going to say all that publicly, how is it possible that, you could think that Harris wouldn't be better? And I'm like, well, because there's other stuff. There's other stuff. Like we're comparing two broad personalities and political platforms. There's other stuff that she did. And by the way, the COVID farmer example is just one of many. If I was going to list more, there was the affirmative
We
action
agree.
case before the Supreme Court. There was the attempt to enforce diversity quotas on Fortune 500 companies. There was another COVID program that had the same thing. And then, by the way, when she was on the campaign trail, when she was losing the black male vote, she promised to give forgivable loans only to black men.
Wait,
So it's
hold
not
on,
like she was
real
like
quick.
running away from this.
I just
She
looked this up,
expressly
Ryan.
doubled down on it.
I just looked this up. There was more money just given in general to regular distressed borrowers for farmers than they were specifically allocated to farmers who had suffered discrimination. Like
So
it was encompassing like not just black farmers. There was just a provision in the funds that went to farmers who had been
Yeah,
discriminated against by the
there,
USDA.
there was a pot of money that was only available to certain people on the basis of their race.
But you're characterizing this like she put out this fund that was just like only available to black farmers. But
Holy fuck, okay.
large part of the fund was just to farmers in general. It wasn't just specifically to black farmers. There
If
was a
the pool of
provision
money
there.
was only available to straight white farmers, what would your reaction have been? Would that be racism?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so
I
then
don't even know if I'd say it's racism. It's just stupid. Like they don't need the money.
So look, if that's racism, this is racism unless you've adopted this kind of definition of racism that involves some kind of historic analysis through the lens of Ibram X. Kendi. But I'll just tell you that like most people haven't, and it's a shitty way of viewing the world.
The pool of money was specifically to people.
The
pool of money was specifically to people who had suffered discrimination from the USDA,
which was limited to black and indigenous people.
I wouldn't really say that white people would be discriminated against by the
USDA. You don't think there's been any white people discriminated against by the government or the FDA at some point? You don't think that exists?
Probably at some point. I would assume they would be included in this though.
They were not included in this because it was expressly done on the basis of race.
Wait, where is it expressly done on the basis of race?
I don't know the specific bill, so I cannot speak to it. I just don't know.
Because the provision is specifically for farmers who have suffered discrimination through USDA programs.
It's not going to be great television, but if we want to, we can pull up the court case where they struck it down as unconstitutional for its racism. If you would like to pull it up. But also, but beyond that it's not like it's an isolated example. Like we had the same thing happen with affirmative action. We had the same thing happen with the NASDAQ companies. And then she promised to do the same thing on the campaign trail. She promised to continue this pattern of behavior. So, we can nitpick the example if you want, but like this is not isolated. And she said she was going to do it.
When did Kamala Harris say that she would continue to do affirmative action despite the Supreme Court ruling against her?
That's not what I said. I said that if I'll just double back so you can remember, she said that on the campaign trail, she had a poll that showed losing support amongst black voters, and her next policy proposals included millions of, I think it was like $20,000 million loans. I could be $1 million, 20,000. I can't remember the exact numbers that were available, fully forgivable, and only available to black people.
Okay, but that's different than you saying that she would continue the affirmative action policies that got struck down by the Supreme Court.
What I'm saying is that there was a pattern of overt racism and bigotry being enacted into law and given the force and protection of law under the Biden administration. And then Harris on the campaign trail doubled down on it by promising to do a very similar thing. So it seems to me like she would continue doing this thing that I object to were she in power, and that people would be kind of crazy to assume she wouldn't, and even more crazy because I don't think that you are an isolated example. I think most people on the left that I've spoken to think like you and don't find this problematic. And if you don't find it problematic, why on earth would she not do it? Right? Like if
Go ahead, Reynald, please.
I think the biggest problem that we're running into is that, like, I can understand why somebody of like a conservative mind state would find these completely objectable. I understand that, coming from like a conservative person, I understand that. The problem I think we're running into is that her doing something objectionable certainly cannot be the burden that we need to meet in order to substantiate the topic of this lab of whether or not she would be better than Donald Trump, right? Like, I can acknowledge that Kamala Harris would have done some problematic things, some things that I find objectionable, but she just wouldn't have done anything that is comparable to the amount of to the amount of hurt that we've seen by Donald Trump to our national discourse. I know we already litigated this, but to our immigration systems, to our free expression of ideals. You can look at the targeting of the law firms. Like, and this is just the scratch of the surface, right? You fucking pardon the J6ers. Like, there was a billion things that we can point to. I feel like the burden needs to be deeper than I find this problematic. I understand that you find it problematic. I could even say that, in a not so distant world, I would have found it problematic as well. The problem is the level of like, this is problematic, but this is like 100 points problematic. This is like 2 points problematic,
Okay, let me be more clear. I find it to be unconstitutional, un-American, contrary to our core values. And I am deeply concerned that the left, as a political party, not even the far left, the Democratic Party has normalized the type of institutional racism made popular by Ibram X. Kendi during this time period. I don't think it's a small problem. I think it's an enormous fucking problem. I think that it is not acceptable for the government to act in that way. It is not acceptable for the government to do the things that they were wanting it to do. And the fact that it is only acceptable, as your debate partner has admitted, because it was targeting white people is kind of a shitty excuse. And that seems like a shitty reason to justify a policy that, well, it's fine because we're only discriminating against white people. But then you're going to come back to me and say, I'm so concerned that the Trump administration is discriminating against brown people in the immigration context. Like, it makes you sound like a fucking crazy person.
Go ahead.
Genuinely, I can meet like 90% of Trump's administration's policies with the same amount of rhetoric, with the same amount of conviction, right? Like, the idea that this is like fundamentally anti-American. Do you agree that like the EO targeting the law firms, like refusing to administer grants because they came out against their administration, that's also like corrosive to the American ideal of freedom of speech?
It was bad from a freedom of speech perspective. It was good from this, by the way, and just sorry, this is going to be a little annoying, but I have to put a little bit of a disclaimer on this. I am a practicing lawyer in New York. There are limits to what I can say about this topic. There were parts of it I really disagreed with. The freedom of speech point, I would grant you, I really disagreed with. The part that I really agreed with is that many of these law firms had overtly discriminatory hiring programs. So like there was a correction mechanism in place around the same issue that I was talking about earlier, which is that under the years of Biden and Obama, there was a belief that it was acceptable, as your debate partner said, to have this sort of discriminatory policy. And a lot of companies, big companies, had discriminatory policies because they believed it was acceptable. I don't love the way Trump did it, but I do like the fact that he made it clear that if you discriminate against people, even if they're white people, we might do something about it. And that has changed the culture and changed corporate culture. But I do apologize. It's a little bit unfair because I can't get into the weeds.
Yeah,
I can't get into the weeds on that
that
topic. Yeah, there's just limits on what I can say.
I understand that. I have a rebuttal, but I'll spare, all right, because that is a little unfair. So we could go to a different example of him trying to attack First Amendment rights if we really want to.
Your time, Reynald. Go ahead.
I mean, we could look at him trying to like revoke the student visas for people, right? For First Amendment protected speech. That's probably in the same way corrosive, not making people not want to express their First Amendment protected beliefs because they're afraid of their, the punishment that may come as a result.
I don't want to speak for Sean, but and we don't know each other, but I've been very critical of Trump on free speech issues. So you're unlikely to get a lot of pushback from me on this. Like, I agree with you that these things are bad. On free speech, though, my point is not that Trump is good on free speech, it's that Biden was also terrible on free speach. So, you know, like if we have a choice between two administrations, neither of them are good on this issue.
In terms of like the rhetoric backing the DEI thing of like, this is a fundamentally anti-American thing that gives me fundamental pause for supporting this administration. Like, how is this not the same exact standard?
Because I have the choice between two administrations that are both terrible on this issue.
Okay.
So like, what am I supposed to do? They're both terrible.
I just don't think we've ever seen anything even remotely comparable to the specific targeting that the Trump administration has engaged in.
Sure we did. They just settled Missouri v. Biden. Like that was a
the Trump DOJ settled it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a.
Just for my clarity, didn't get knocked down in SCOTUS before
the Supreme Court because they couldn't demonstrate harm.
This is just a new kind of. He did it again because he got a friendly government, and the government settled because they're all.
Wick, I know you like to moderate.
No, I'm just asking for a fact claim. Right? Is that not true?
Yeah, it is.
That is true.
It failed at the Supreme Court for standing. Okay. But here's the thing, and since you're joining in the fray, I know you like Wick was very concerned, for example, about the jawboning of Jimmy Kimmel. But that's what Missouri v. Biden was about. It was about jawboning mostly conservatives across the country. But the difference between them and Jimmy Kimmel is that they had no redress. They had no lawyers. They didn't get their day in the sun. They didn't get like the biggest ratings of their life after a couple days. They were just banned from social media, and they didn't know why for years. And so, yeah, that's pretty bad on free speech level to jawbone social media companies, to ban and shadow ban conservatives en masse. We're talking about thousands and thousands of people. It's pretty bad.
So we can even say it's pretty bad. Is it like I'm gonna bring up another example because there's so many. Like, are you familiar with like the executive order targeting Chris Krebs specifically for criminal prosecution?
I don't know. I'm not. Go ahead. I'm not familiar, but you can let me know.
Yeah, well, he signed an executive order directed at Chris Krebs for political prosecution. Like, literally signed an executive order targeting this person. Like, isn't that like a level of targeting that we didn't see under? I don't even know if we've ever seen that under a Democrat or Republican for that matter.
Are we leaving free speech, or does this have a free speech component that you're getting to?
I mean, I don't know what else they would sign this executive order on the grounds of, other than the fact that he was affiliated with somebody that was politically disadvantageous to him.
Give me some facts, because I don't know the facts of this, so I can't tell you why he targeted Chris Krebs, or if he targeted Chris Krebs, because I don't know what you're talking about. But if you have the facts, I'd be happy to talk about them. But I guess this is like, I've heard this criticism in various forms. I can't speak to Chris Krebs because I just don't know. Sean, if you do, please cut me off. Mm-hmm. But what I would say in general is that there's a thing that happens where, like comparing Jimmy Kimmel to Missouri v. Biden, there's the targeting of Jimmy Kimmel. It feels overt and feels gross, and people get really riled up about it, and it causes a lot of emotion. And I'm not going to defend it because I thought it was a shitty, stupid, bad from free speech perspective thing to do. But then targeting tens of thousands of Americans who have no recourse and didn't get their moment in the sun is like not a big deal, or is like a lesser of a big deal because it was less overt. Like, I think it's actually a bigger deal. I think it's a bigger deal to censor silently, because when you censor people silently, we don't find out about it. We can't do anything about it. Like, censoring in the dark is the scariest form of censorship.
Response?
I mean, I feel like just in terms of proving because like when we say silence, or like, banning in silence, or like kind of silencing in the dark, I feel like we're pulling a lot of legwork to assume that we can, tell the state of mind in terms of revoking people's First Amendment rights to the same degree in both situations. Whereas Donald Trump will come out and say, this person is my political opponent, and I'm going to assign an executive order to punish them because I don't like them politically. And the idea that like this kind of, overt statement of, intent from the Trump administration is comparable to whatever happened with the Twitter files, or by extension in Biden v. Missouri. I feel like the comparison there is kind of lacking the intent there. I feel like the intent is a super, super important part if we're measuring like who has more contempt for these, First Amendment principles.
So I had time to look it up, and Krebs was targeted because of his censorship of free speech. That's what the executive order says. So that's the
That's what the title of it says. Yeah.
that's the stated intent. He was targeted because of his inappropriate censorship of free speech. So since intent matters, I'm sure that matters to you.
So I'm aware of the technical grounds that they said that it existed. The problem is that like Krebs didn't do that, right? Like this could be a knowledge gap problem. The only evidence that I'm aware of that Chris Krebs engaged in literally any of this is just making the statement through DHS saying that the 2020 election was the most secure. That's literally it. That's all I'm aware of that would predicate this executive order.
Yeah,
and if that is the case, that's all that predicated the executive order, that's certainly an attack on freedom of speech, right?
Yeah, that would be. I would agree. But the question is, like, you're saying that intent doesn't. You're saying intent matters, but then you're assuming best intent when tens of thousands of conservatives are silenced, and assuming worst intent when Trump targets somebody. And this is the problem with focusing on intent. Like, I don't know that I would grant you that the Biden actions were, so intent free. But what you're doing is you're focusing on the one guy with the salacious example. And let's say I grant you this is a really bad example. Let's say this is a terrible free speech violation. Like, the fact that it's public and the fact that you can see what's happening is kind of the point I'm making. Being censored in silence is worse, especially on a mass scale.
So if the goal is to chill freedom of speech, showing that if you come out against this administration, you're going to be targeted by this administration and silenced, don't you think that's probably going to have a more corrosive effect if more people can see it? Like, it's an example, like making an example out of somebody?
No,
I'm pretty sure that was the main argument that was made in the student visa case, that it's a chilling effect on speech.
I want to make sure Sean gets a chance in.
The smell of blood goes far regardless of what's going on, whether it's a covert activity. Like, people know and people realize what's going on. So the idea that, we're overtly and openly doing it, like, okay, yeah, that's very different than how the government's typically operated. But the government, the U.S. government has a long history of retaliating against people it feels where whistleblowers have done things inappropriately or gone after whoever. I mean, yes, Trump is unique. He's like the first person. It's like, I'm just going to tell you I'm doing it. But no, it is a chilling of free speech. But the government traditionally and over, throughout the Biden administration was silencing speech. I mean, it was to the point where the FBI was sitting down with companies saying, you'd better do what we need to do here. I mean, those were very coercive and very, just awful things that happened. And I agree. It's no different than Brendan Carr trying to do that. And I would argue that consent decree probably would work against Brendan Carr talking anymore either. So I think that's good. I want to see that. Yes, there was a consent decree, but we promise not to fuck with social media companies. I'm like,
okay,
I want to see the problem with that one.
I want to wrap up this segment as well to give one more segment, right? Because I want to cover at least 3 things, right? So we covered immigration. We covered I would consider this the freedom of speech portion, probably the DEI portion. And I want to make sure that we get last words on there. So I guess same question I had for the immigration. Who here thinks that when it comes to freedom of speech and discrimination and DEI, we'll just kind of package it in, that Harris would have been better than Trump is doing? Raise your hands. Okay, no, you're not.
Well, I'm sure she would have been better at DEI. She would have done DEI, but
she would have better at DEI.
Better of DEI.
I got abandoned.
I get what you're
a long list of things Harris is better at.
Okay,
masterful use of the prompt.
I guess
I understand what you're saying.
So for those of you who answered no, right, who thinks Trump is better, I'll let you give the chance to explain why, and then I'm going to let the other side explain why, since I reversed that the first time, right? If that makes sense. So I'll let Ryan, then let Sean go. Keep these brief, and then we'll let Lucas and Renyal go. Go ahead.
Yeah, the argument I made was that Harris was overtly and Biden were overtly discriminating on the basis of race. The response I got was, yes, that's okay. I don't mind that. So I think on that point, it obviously the audience can decide for themselves if that's the sort of thing that bothers you. But if it does, they're clearly worse. On free speech, neither of these sides are getting a pass from me. I think they've both been disastrous on free speech. I will say, though, piggybacking on what Sean brought up, the consent decree that came out of Missouri v. Biden is a big victory for free speech. That's a 10-year enforceable order where if the government goes and is jawboning and silencing people on social media, you can go to court and you can get it enforced and say, thou shalt not do that. And it will extend well beyond the Trump presidency. So that's in my mind a good free speech win, and I'm glad it happened.
Sean,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, sorry. I thought.
Yeah, no, Sean,
Oh,
I'll let their side
well,
go first, and you guys get the last word on this one. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, that is the one thing I will say. I know people are very skeptical of that, but I think it's, that is a big win, regardless of who you are. That is a massive win for things. But Trump has done a lot of things I don't like. Yeah, I don't like them. Overall, do I think he still would do far better for things in this regard than Kamala Harris would have done? Yeah, I still do. I still do. I mean, I don't. She did nothing to inspire confidence in me. She never came out pointing out like, "Hey, yeah, we shouldn't have really been involved in that. We should have really clamped down on the FBI doing this. We should have come out and said this is unacceptable. We don't agree to it at all." The DOJ prosecuting the what's his name? The guy with the Hillary memes.
I forget his name too. I'm sorry. I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah. I mean, there have been a lot of shitty things done here, and I just, oh God, what is his name? I don't remember.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
It's, but we are seeing that, and they tried to prosecute somebody and they couldn't. That guy they did, and they tried to put him in prison. They wanted him to go to prison for quite a while, and he was barely able to not get sent to prison and was able to stay out until the Court of Appeals said, yeah, you know what? That's not fair. I mean, that is insane right there. Like, the guy almost went to prison for a meme.
So just to be clear from both of you, and just a one-word answer here, please, and this is to Ryan, to Sean, on free speech specifically. I know you may say both are bad, but which is worse, Harris or Trump?
I think the Harris administration would be worse.
Okay. Same question to you, Ryan. You're muted.
Ryan.
I've pushed talk. I censored myself. My fault. Yeah, I mean, I think they are both below the threshold of acceptability, so they're equally terrible.
So equal, no difference.
Yeah, just terrible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Explain why you think Harris would be better. And I'm going to give this to Lucas, then to Rinald. Go ahead.
I think Ryan is still mischaracterizing my DEI position by like intuition pumping the word like discrimination into it. Like we discriminate against people all the time. Like we discriminate against people who want to walk into stores naked. We discriminate against like people who are coming in the country who are like terrorists, right? There's obviously levels of extent to discrimination that are like acceptable and unacceptable. I think Trump was easily worse on free speech. We never saw anything as harmful and as severe as like trying to call for the death of Democrats for their free speech, or like the revocations of the student visas, trying to deport people for their free speech as well.
Okay. Rinald.
Yeah, I feel like we also kind of lost the point of bringing up the First Amendment problem, because the reason that I brought up the First Amendment problem is that Mullally brought up DEI as an example of this, or Kamala Harris and Biden's administration engaging in like, completely constitutionally impermissible, horrific, corrosive policy. And I'm saying, even if we were to grant that framing, I could say the same exact thing for like a billion different policies that the Trump administration has engaged in, like their policy on freedom of speech. I think this is probably worse in terms of like contempt for the Constitution and brazenness in doing so, both in the case of comparing it against DEI and comparing it in the case of Joe Biden's alleged, violations of the First Amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finish up. If you're not done, I don't want to interrupt you.
I just think the examples from Trump is worse, and it's more clear.
Okay. The third topic I'm going to pick, because I know you guys picked the immigration, you guys picked the freedom of speech DEI thing. I'm going to pick the third topic for you guys, and the final topic, and then we'll wrap up. The economy. Who would be better right now for the economy as a whole, Trump or Harris? And I want to give Ryan, first word on this one, and then we'll go around.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be at the risk of annoying Wick, but I think that what I'm seeing from the Trump administration is a recognition of what our long-term economic problem is and how to solve it. The long-term problem that America is going to have is that China has infringed on us economically and is setting up the death of the not oil for the United States, but the mandate that oil be traded in U.S. currency. And with the death of the petrodollar comes massive, massive trauma to our economy. What I've seen from Trump is an attempt to realign geopolitics to create American hegemony in a new way. Is it working? That's another question. So the way that I see this question, Wick, is do you want to fight for American dominance or do you accept managed decline? And that's the way that I look
If
at this
that's how you
particular
want to
issue.
phrase it, that's your choice, man.
Yeah.
So. Sean, you're up.
Well, I mean, I think we're seeing it right now. The challenge to, I'll use it just the term petrodollar. I mean, we're seeing the beginnings of that showdown are finally coming to fruition, and it's almost, well, you're saying the economy. It's like the situation in Iran is really driving this right now, kind of accelerating it. No, it's how do you deal with that? What do you need to deal with that? What's the intent? What's the plan here? I think Trump is probably the best at that. You know, I understand that. I think Kamala Harris would have been focused on dealing with Russia, which I'm not really too worried about a bunch of half-drunk sister fucking orcs out in the Siberian wilderness. I'm a little more
Jesus
concerned
Christ.
about China. What's that? Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. It just
I mean,
threw me
I'm
for
sorry. Are you part
the
Russian?
description. Threw me
Sorry.
for. No, it's fine. You can say it.
Okay.
Just threw me for a
Okay.
loop. That's all.
Well,
He's not Russian, but he's still offended for some reason.
No,
Ask
it's
him
just
why.
it's weird. Like I didn't expect it, but go ahead.
okay. Okay.
Because
Sorry.
he's an
Well,
orc.
yeah, I was gonna say if you're part orc, I'm sorry.
Not lactoid. Okay, what are you talking about? But go on.
But no, I think it is coming to a head here. I do think though that this is managing the economy though. I think whoever really is going to have I think there were going to be significant problems for whoever takes this economy at this point. It's a lot of problems. I do think Pam Bondi's moronic line of the Dow at 50,000, like, okay, cool. The Dow's at 50,000. People buying houses is damn near impossible. Like, there's so many issues here. Actually, I guess I'll revise that. I don't know who would be better on that at this point because I think whatever Kamala might try to do, I don't think really would necessarily result in a better. We probably there'd be problems, just different problems at this point, and I don't know if those problems. I think those problems would probably be similar in scope. It's just now a matter of this is
Gotcha.
where are you going to go back to the beginning of this problem at? A lot of things. So I don't know who would be better at this one, actually, honestly.
Lucas.
Yeah, I think obviously I think Kamala would have been better on the economy. I think Democrats tend to be more in favor of balancing the budget than Republicans. I think expanding social safety nets are pretty good. Kamala wouldn't have tariffed the whole world. I think tariffs are pretty bad. I think it's a fantasy to think that the U.S. will be able to domestically produce all of the things that we import from countries like China, and it just won't work.
Fair. Rinyald.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak with low conviction because I'm not an econ guy and I'm not gonna pretend like I am. But the most clear example of why I think, like the specific extent to which Harris or Trump would be better, I'm not even really certain. It seems like, under Biden, we didn't see like any huge dramatic shifts other than, pieces of legislation stimulating, particular like manufacturing within the US and like the promotion of green energy, which I generally like a lot. I think the tariffs have been pretty obviously bad in a lot of obvious ways. But like in terms of the specific policies, I'm not going to pretend like I'm, well versed enough in order to say like, give a super in-depth, understanding of it. However, I will say I liked the kind of policy specifics I saw under Biden more than what I'm looking at right now with the tariffs.
Can you give us an example just so we can crunch on it? And maybe we could start the open discussion portion on this here. Give us a specific Bidenomics policy that you thought was superior to Trump's?
I think the CHIPS Act was really good. The CHIPS Act was everything Trump is like trying to do with China by like domestically producing things that we don't want China to be exporting to us. I think it worked really well. It created a lot of jobs. I don't know the specific numbers on it because I'm also not a big econ guy, but that's a policy I like from Biden.
You said something earlier that I just don't want to lose the thread on, just because I was confused by it. You said that you thought the Democrats were both going to expand the social safety net and be better on balancing the budget. Aren't those
You can do those
opposite
things.
considerations?
Yeah.
Well, how do you balance
by
the
cutting-
budget
by
while
cutting-
spending more money?
You can cut spending in other places or raise revenue in other places as well. Like you can raise revenue from like taxing like the top percent or cutting other areas. I don't think those need to be.
Let me just ask you, like, what do you think the U.S. spends the most money on as a category right now?
Social safety.
Like, what's our
Yeah, it's easily going to be social spending.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we should expand the most expensive thing, and then make cuts where to balance the budget? Like, it's already the most expensive thing.
We could probably.
Like, I don't understand what you're talking about.
Like I said, I'm not a big econ guy, but I think we could raise revenue through like changing like tax brackets. We can do like corporate taxes. I think those might be good.
We have corporate taxes.
We can raise
Raising, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and
I guess,
also the thing about like the budget too is that like social safety nets tend to generate money for the United States, so it grows our economy, and that helps us as well.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, so like for SNAP, for example, like every SNAP dollar generates $1.79 in economic activity. It lifts people out of poverty. Like all these things are going to help the economy. Like when we have people that aren't in poverty, they're going to be consuming more, they're going to be investing more, things like that.
So then we should put like another $1 trillion into SNAP. That way we get like 1.8 trillion back, right?
I don't think it works that way. I mean, there's obviously
it doesn't.
There would obviously be like a decline at some point in that.
Yeah, I think that what ends up happening.
I don't know why you thought that was like an own.
Because it's a nonsensical figure, and your explanation shows why
it's nonsensical.
It's a nonsensical figure. The issue.
Wait, how is that nonsensical?
Because you're claiming that SNAP produces $1.79 of economic activity.
Yeah, each dollar.
And we can talk about why you think that. And then I probed you and said, you said each dollar creates this. And then I said, well, what if we put a bunch more dollars in? And you said, well, actually, that wouldn't work like that.
No, I'm saying at some point, if we put so much into it, at some point, we would probably have diminishing returns eventually.
So then we shouldn't put more money into it because we'd have diminishing returns.
Well, obviously there's an extent. Like I don't think funding SNAP more right now.
Well, hold on, but let me just ask both of you: do we think that we are currently, when it comes to SNAP, at the point of diminishing returns for economic activity?
No, because we're generating money. We're generating money from SNAP until we're not generating money from it. Then
I want to ask Ryan: do you think we are?
I think the entire question is ridiculous. That's like the metric that's being used is silly, because what you're doing is you're taxing people, which is reducing economic activity. You're spending it on SNAP, but you're not actually counting the reduction in economic activity caused by the taxes. So it's just a self-serving number. It's a ridiculous number. It was the point I was getting at.
Well, I'm saying these things. That's my point. Is that we spend money on these things and they generate economic activity. Taxing. I wouldn't say that like taxing people like destroys like economic activity, especially when we're like benefiting from it.
All right. If you take $1 from me, I can't spend that dollar, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the reduction in economic activity. And
because it increases, because then it goes to $1.79. Like the dollar.
Okay,
hold
on. I want Rinyal to be able to get it here. Rinyal's looking like he's gonna, I don't know, explode. So go ahead.
No, I'm listen, like I said, low conviction. But like I think the idea is that, like, let's say that there's somebody with $2 and there's somebody with $500, and you take $10 from the person with $500 and you give it to the guy with $2, right? So this person still has $490 to spend, but now this person has $12 to spend. So they're both probably like, I don't know if we're going to see a diminishing amount of spending from the $490 person, but we would see a pretty substantial increase in spending from the $12 person. I think that's the idea.
It depends.
Yeah, but the logic of that argument is, though, you give him that $10 and now magically he can spend $14. is basically
No,
kind of
I
the
don't think that
whole-
is the argument. I think
Well,
the argument is
literally,
that
no,
it just
that's-
stimulates lower income people spending. I think that's
Well,
the
no,
idea.
but that's the argument. Every dollar we give generates $1 plus. It's like, well, then where's this extra money coming from?
From the
It's going to be coming. So if we give people food, they don't need to spend money on food, so they spend money elsewhere. I think that's the idea.
So as I understand it, and again, I'm not an economics professor, maybe we can have non-fun all day, but the idea behind these things is that we tax people who have lots of money. I'm not even saying I'm agreeing with this idea, but this is a theory. We tax people who have lots of money, right, to spend, and we give it to people who have little money to spend, knowing that the people with lots of money aren't going to change their habits because $10 out of 10,000 isn't going to really hurt you. Whereas a guy who only has $100, suddenly they have a 10% increase and can now afford much more spending. And so we see increased economic activity that the 10,000 guy would save and not put into the economy is now being put into the economy through the 100 guy.
That's that rich guy would actually more likely invest the money.
Exactly, Sean. Exactly. It's based on a false premise.
That would magically grow money. That $1 would turn into like $100.
I don't know what you guys are talking about with the magically growing money thing.
What I'm talking about is that when they calculate economic activity, they specifically mean money circulating in the retail activity. They expressly exclude what Sean brought up, which is investment in companies. Newsflash.
Yeah, but those investments don't stay in the United States. They go to other countries. They go to Russia. They go to China. They go to all these other places.
They also
with the offshoring of jobs. We've seen this.
They also fund U.S. investment. They fund U.S. pension funds. They fund U.S. retirement accounts. They do all these things. If investing in companies is not a good thing, we have a little bit of a problem on our hands, Whick. And what I'm saying is the number expressly excludes certain types of economic activity and favors other types of economic activity, which is why it's kind of a ridiculous figure.
Wait, but I mean, we can also, even with the exclusion, though, we could assume that like these people are also going to have more money to spend in other places, like investments and things like that. Like if somebody isn't worried about spending like however many thousands on groceries a month, they could put that in like a Roth IRA or like an investment thing. I don't whatever you call it.
You think a lot of SNAP beneficiaries are investing in Roth IRAs?
Yeah, sure. If they have more security in their finances.
If they're investing in Roth IRAs, I think maybe we shouldn't be giving them government handouts. Like that. That seems like if they.
That doesn't make sense.
Like, why are we giving free benefits and resources to people who don't need them? It's supposed to be an assistance program.
Well, like I said, SNAP is going to these people who are like lower income. They do need these things, and so.
But in your hypo, they're investing in Roth IRAs. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm saying they're investing since they don't have to like spend all this money.
You're arguing
on
they would
things.
invest that money because now they have more money.
Yes,
to save.
exactly. Yeah, I don't know.
I would say I don't think. I mean, and I'm not gonna like people like, if you're the point you're using Snap, I mean, that's not good. Like, things aren't going well. Like, I don't think that's really going to. You need to do a significant amount of economic development probably to get people to want to do investment that would be beneficial to them in the longer term, because it's just a supplemental program. So it's. I mean, most of the people still receiving SNAP are still below the poverty line, are going to be struggling with it regardless.
Sure, but people who are getting like, I have to respond to that real quick. People who are like getting assistance are probably, I would say they're probably more likely to be investing than if they were spending all their money like on groceries and necessities.
So here's a fun SNAP story. It's an anecdote. Take it for what it's worth. I was traveling for a trial, and I was in a CVS in a town that I was not familiar with. And it was almost Easter, and there was a lovely woman, and she had lovely children. I'm happy they got to have a nice Easter. But she was bringing up these Easter baskets that were, it was a basket with a stuffed animal in it. And in the basket, there were some jelly beans and the stuffed rabbit. And she got to the counter, and she said, "Can my SNAP benefits cover this?" And the cashier said, "Yes, because of the jelly beans."
Sure.
So yeah, it's. I guess that's the economic activity we're stimulating. We're taking taxes. We're giving it to people. There's no check on what they purchase, and then they can buy stuffed rabbits and jelly beans with the funds.
Sure, yeah.
All right.
Would
Well,
you,
if that,
hold on,
Okay, great.
Would you
Honor for-
disagree? Would you disagree that?
Well,
Would
let's
you disagree
move-
that
let's
most
move
SNAP
beyond-
benefits are going are
Hold on,
going to
hold on.
food?
I don't want
Do you
to.
think that they like?
I think we're getting stuck on a SNAP debate, and
yeah,
it's
that's
fair
fine.
because it matters, right?
You didn't
But-
invite me to the SNAP debate, Wick. You invited Gen Z attorney, and
Gen
you
Z did
scorned
very
me.
well
I
on
had
that
all these
debate.
talking points ready for it, and then
Gen Z did very well on
he
that
did
debate,
great. He did
okay?
great. I miss him. He started his own law firm, by the way.
I heard.
Yeah, he's
But-
crushing it.
But I wanna like focus on the economy as a whole, right? Like, and just kind of to talk about again, who would have done better, Harris? Because the economy is more than just the GDP. The economy is more than just our budget deficit or budget surplus. It's about how much money's in the average American's pocket. It's about how much groceries cost. It's how much gas costs. It's about how much economic development there is into America, and economic investments and things like that. And I want to just kind of get a real idea. And we're kind of running down the clock here. We only got about a few more minutes. But I guess I just want to hear from each of you. Why would your preferred candidate be better on that? I'm just really curious.
Well, actually, what would Harris's in these guys' minds? What would Harris's economic policies have been?
Fair question. Go
Because
ahead.
part of the issue with the debate like this is that we're kind of it's kind of a I don't know like I don't want to say a straw man, but it's kind of just like an idealized figure that we never actually got to see, so it's all hypothetical. So what do you guys think she would have done that would have been good for the economy?
I mean, it'd probably just been like the standard Democrat policy making. Like we agreed earlier, it'd been a continuation of Biden policies. I liked Biden on the economy. I think I
mean,
actually
generally-
did disagree. I did disagree with her unrealized capital gains tax, but that's
Yeah,
like,
seemed
such a
bad.
small thing in the whole picture.
I mean,
That-
we can look
that's
at,
actually
like,
a pretty
she
big deal. But
specifically.
continue.
It's a big deal, but I mean, like the reason that it's not as big of a deal is because she just doesn't have much capacity to actually have that happen. There's no chance in hell that would have gotten through Congress. One thing that she said that she would have done, which actually kind of refers back to, I don't remember who said it. It was one of you two, talking about how it's like basically impossible to own a home right now. One of the things that she was running on was like cutting a bunch of red tape in terms of like overbearing regulation and building new housing. I think that was a good thing that she was talking about doing. I pretty sure Donald Trump said almost the exact opposite, that he wants to keep like property prices high to stimulate people keeping their properties. I think that's an example of Harris doing better.
I'm going to be deeply, deeply black-pilled on this, and I don't know if this is going to help you or not, or hurt me. I'm just going to be as honest as I can about this. The housing thing is a huge problem. The only solution is state and local. Like the barrier, it's not it is a supply problem. We need to build more housing. It's not a demand problem. Harris had some demand solutions as well, by the way, which wouldn't have worked. But the actual, just to be charitable, the actual solution here is not national. You have to get into your state legislatures, you have to get into your local governments and get them to change zoning. Like that's what it is. It's zoning regulations first and foremost that are like the crushing blow. At the federal level, they could do something they could lessen environmental regulations, which would be helpful.
Okay.
But that's
I mean, even in terms of
Hold on,
Do-
hold on, Ridell.
yeah.
Hold on, Ridell.
Go ahead.
I know, but we have time crunch here, and I want to make sure everyone gets closing statements, and I want to make sure I get to these super chats. So here's what we're gonna do.
Wick, I heard you don't do super chats.
Yeah, well, super chats matter. They matter.
I
to
heard.
me.
We'll come back
I
tomorrow.
heard you heartlessly skip them, and you make people come back the next
Wick's
day.
not in
I
this for the
did.
money.
I am actually.
Monster.
I felt really bad about it too because people paid me quite a bit of money to say things last night during my panel, and I just look. Yeah, last night's content was the best panel I've done all year. It was great. So if you want to go check that out,
except for
after
this
you're
one,
done
right,
here,
Wick?
please do. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna read these super chats. give you a
Didn't
chance
even
to
respond.
discuss
Non-answer, damning non-answer.
Dad, I did great, didn't I?
these.
Say something.
And what we're gonna do is we're gonna give each of these lovely individuals a chance to close out with their final thoughts and tell people where you can find them. I have links to their stuff in my YouTube description, and I encourage you. They've taken their time out of their day to come and give you content. Give them a follow, give them a subscribe, give them go check out their stuff too. It really does help. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go through these super chats. I'm gonna give you guys last word, and then we're gonna end the show. $5 from Mr. Game Man. Ryan, please give examples of racism from the Democratic populace that came from trying to give money to black farmers. Go ahead.
That's the example.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Yeah, like the government, the government giving money specifically on the basis of race is the example. But you only gave $5, so that's all the answer you get.
Okay, fair enough.
Come back with
$5
deeper
Lord of the
pockets.
Nerds. Russiagate was an attempt to accuse Trump of treason and working for Russia. What do the libs think happens to people who commit treason at that level?
I don't know why.
That's to
I
you,
don't know where you're getting
Lucas.
the
So-
Russiagate is treason thing from.
I see,
but-
oh my god, there's so many things. Like, the investigation itself
$5.
probably
Give him a
wasn't.
$5 answer. Okay.
He didn't call for the death of the people involved with Russiagate. He called for the death of different people. So, I mean, if that's the case, then he should probably be calling for the death of Russiagate.
Okay. JDZ for $5. Don't we still need to hire more judges? Trump wants asylum to go to 0. They don't want to process claims faster unless you're South African. Okay.
I mean, we hiring more judges would be good, but there's lots of things you can do other than hiring judges to process claims. For example, in Trump's first term, one of the things he did is he just changed the order that asylum claims are processed. So instead of doing first in, first out, it was last in, first out, so that you could get people processed quicker and accepting some backlog. So there's other options on the table.
The bigger thing I just would like to point out is, hiring more judges. The immigration judges are DOJ employees. They're not like a federal judge like we think of. They're literally guys who work at the DOJ. They're hearing officers. They're not actual judges.
Yeah.
Just if you happen to be an immigration judge and you get really upset about that, too bad. You're not really a judge.
Also, man, he's calling you out specifically. Ooh.
Also,
Okay.
I know this is a $5 thing, Wick, but like the denial rate in asylum cases is like north of 80-85% most of the time. So like, yeah, more hearings leads to more deportations, not the other way around.
$5 from Purely Antics. Does Ryan think the Women in STEM program unfairly benefits women? It seems like there are countless examples of instances where this is fine.
I do not think the federal government should be in the business of prioritizing people on the basis of their membership in protected groups. I don't think that they should be doing it.
So you'd be against like Title IX protections.
Are you talking about like a anti-discrimination? Like you can't
women in
discriminate?
sports and things like that. There are a lot. Title IX. I think it's Title IX. Am I getting the title wrong? I might be.
Title IX covers the women in sports and education institutions.
Yeah. Like this is federal money given to allow, right? Or there's laws, I should say, making sure that government institutions, college institutions and stuff have to respect certain like separations, right? So they can discriminate against men for when it comes to sports and by having women-only leagues.
Yeah, I've come to the reluctant conclusion that we'd be better off without these sorts of federal interventions. Because we've seen it abused terribly in the last couple of years.
$5 from Natural Phenomenon. Ryan, if the government had a pool of money only for paraplegics, is that ableist?
Is it ableist to have money only for paraplegics?
Yes, money you can only receive if you are paraplegic.
It probably would be ableist, but the concern that you get with something like discriminating on the basis of race doesn't exist there, because like the reason that racial discrimination is considered to be wrong is that we have made the moral determination that there are not legitimate differences between the races. And if there's not, then the law should not be favoring one or the other over that basis. People with no arms and legs do have legitimate differences from people who do have arms and legs, and I think that's a fairly self-evidently category different.
Can I say something quick about that, Wick?
So just real quick, because
that's really my same argument for like the DEI stuff is you can pretend like there isn't differences between the races, but they've obviously had a much different historical experience in the United States than one another. Okay, that's all.
Okay, maybe we can have a DEI debate specifically at some point, right?
Yeah.
But,
I was about to say that was a good clarifier.
Oh yeah, not by yeah, not like that.
Yeah.
Coming out strong for the differences between the races, the left.
Not like that.
$5 from
Break out the
Kai,
IQ
our
chart.
archivist. In the past 5 years, I've been skipped over for 5 corporate promotions to white men. When do I get my magic DEI that propels me over white men? Thank you for the $5.
Well, if you think you're being discriminated against, hire and talk to an attorney.
Yeah. It also could be that you suck at your job.
Well, everyone
Donate
who
more
gives me
money next
money
time,
is
and I'll
the
be nicer.
best at their job. Everyone who donates to Whick is the best, and I support them.
The
Okay?
savviest.
Exactly. $5 from
Donate to
Super...
me. I'll say you're good at your job. I can be bought.
True. $5 from Super Iron Bob. Douglas McKay happened under Biden, not just an indictment, but full-on conviction, which was overturned. Thank you for the $5.
That's the guy. That's the guy, the meme guy.
Yeah, that's the meme guy, Douglas McKay. What do you think, gang? Oh, yeah, he's the guy who, well, he didn't just make a meme, right? He said, hey, Clinton voters, go to the polls.
I would argue that was a meme, and it's clearly like, you could text your vote in.
I don't know. I
genuinely have
mean,
no
I'd
clue
have
what
to look in the details. Maybe we can debate on that sometime, because
okay.
as I remember and as I recall, and I might change my mind if I refresh my memory on this, but it was there was a lot stronger evidence that it wasn't just a meme. But we could talk about it another day. $10 from Mr. Game Man. Massive W from my brothers on the left. Thank you for the $10. Okay, with that, let's get to closings. I'm gonna let Renyold have the first crack at it, and Ryan's gonna have the last word. Renyold, close us out.
Yeah, I'm Rinyold. I do a bunch of debates, mostly on TikTok. I'm a pretty strong liberal. I think that in terms of this, whenever I take a position that I don't actually hold in order to, just kind of like spur on debate, I feel like that's about the kind of like, if I were to do that for Donald Trump, I probably would have made the same exact arguments that Ryan and potentially Criminal did. However, I think when you look at the scale to like comparing these two things, I think they're just way apart. It's not even close. I don't even think it sounds convincing, the idea that like DEI policies justifies for like the torture of people in foreign prisons, the pardoning of the J6ers, the targeting of law firms to chill free speech, like all of these different things. These are only the examples that we got into. We could have been here for a day and I could have still been bringing new examples. So it just kind of is what it is. I appreciate Lucas for using me as a fill-in. I appreciate Ryan for being here. And for the record, I think you're the best debater on the right, so I appreciate your time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, we do appreciate you for filling in last minute. I will change my YouTube description to replace you, but you gotta let me. You gotta give me a minute or two to do that. But I appreciate you coming in, especially last minute. Let's give it to Lucas. Go ahead.
First of all, I second what Rinyold says about Ryan. This is my first ever panel, and I was terrified. Okay, but anyway, I think like Rinyold said, comparing the DEI stuff to Trump's immigration policy, I don't think is a fair comparison at all. I think DEI in general is kind of like a nothing burger issue. I think it's good, but about the other things like the economy, I think we demonstrated that Kamala would be better in the economy, and I also think we demonstrated that Trump was worse on free speech.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Sean.
Well, I get like Lucas, this is my first time doing it, although I think I got completely felted here tonight. So, just absolutely crashed and burned. It's funny because I don't mind going to court, and doing things, but, no, I think ultimately, when it comes to the economy, I know we all sat here, it's like, well, we don't really know, and then we started talking about it, but I do think Trump's ultimately, I think it's going to be hard to say there. I think they both would have probably been in a similar situation regardless of what's going on here. When it comes to free speech, I do think that, Trump ultimately was better in the long term. I don't trust the way that we have to rely on the Biden-Harris administration, how they did things and what they wanted to do. What would they have done coming in? I think clearly established they were willing to be hostile and aggressive, and it would have kept going. It wasn't going to stop. It wasn't letting up. It was only starting to traject that way. So I don't think it would have been better. Now that says, like, it's just, is it bleak to say both of them were this awful? Yes, it is. But I do think Trump was better overall. What's the other one? What was the other thing? Economy, free speech.
Oh, we talked about free speech. We talked about
immigration.
Economy. We talked about
immigration. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah. God, that feels like a year ago. I think it's clear that any immigration, strengthening was just clearly lip service from Biden and Kamala, and that they would have clearly just reverted back to what they've been doing. And I think Trump is probably the only, I will say, it's any of the Republican presidents or any president to be serious about immigration reform. It's always been talk about, oh, well, we'll work on the border. He's the only one who's actually tried to work on the border, and actually to the point of like throttling throttling any crossing. So I think Trump has done far better than Kamala Harris would have done at that.
Well, Sean, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry we were kind of intimidating. I didn't mean to be. I hope we're not scary, but we'd love to have you back.
I was scared too, bro. That's fine.
Probably the size of my arms. That's probably what did it.
Well, it's all good. No, it's fine.
Wick,
No,
don't be nice. Don't be nice to lawyers. We turn into gremlins.
Well,
It's
we'd
like
love to. We'd love to have. You know what? I have a lot of lawyers that come on my show. Like a lot. There's like you, Lactoid, Gen Z, Pisco, Kafka,
Lactoid's a lawyer?
Like, there's a ton.
Yeah.
Lactoid Century? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
diehard originalist brother.
They're all lawyers. And I don't know why there's so many of you, but you all like to come on my show. But it's okay. We still love you. Ryan,
you had a show about arguments, and then you're like, why do lawyers show up? Weird.
True. I know that's a silly question. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, first of all, thank you everybody for coming out. It is weird to do these Wick panels. I think the first one that I got on, I had Destiny and Pisco yelling at me. So like I know what the experience is like, and I appreciate you guys for doing it and coming out. And I'd like to start my remarks by saying, as the now anointed best debater on the right, suck it, Rob Noor, and suck it, Andrew Wilson. You had your time. It's too bad, but the panel has spoken, and this is where we are today. Look, it's very hard to do comparisons between like presidents because it's such a broad category. It's even harder to do comparisons between the current president and a hypothetical president where we don't really know. We're just projecting what she would have done, and we're trying to guess. It's a tough thing to do. But just like there's any number of criticisms that my friends on the left could have raised about Trump and they didn't have time to do, there are numerous criticisms that we could have raised about Harris that we didn't get to. The one that comes to mind, and I'll just close on this, is how ridiculous the judicial appointments got under the Biden years. Sean and I covered a case recently. I swear to God, this is not hyperbole. The statute says there shall be no judicial review. And yet, this Biden appointee was able to interpret that language to mean there will be judicial review, and I am barring the Trump administration from taking action. Like there's wildly bad judicial appointments coming out of the Biden administration that are toxic to the rule of law in a way that is difficult to explain to non-lawyers, but we didn't even get to talk about it today, so that'll be a topic for another time. But I appreciate you all, appreciate the time. My channel is Natural Law with Ryan Mullally. We are swollen with viewers right now because Sean's friends came over. Sean, you should come hang out. If you have time. But yeah, very much appreciate all of you. Come drop by the stream. We have fun. And if you hate what I say, come by the stream. I'll ignore you, and then you can pay me to read the comments you hate. But so we have a system. It'll be fun.
Gang, thank you, Ryan, for being here. Always appreciate when you come on my show. If you liked my content, if you want to see more of it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We have conversations like this all the time. We got some great shows coming up next week. We're going to have on Lactoid versus Kalinda on the subject of Ukraine. And we got some other things cooking. I'm trying to get IRI on the show again. It's been a while since he's been here. And so we're trying to tempt him in and get something going with that. We're probably also going to talk more about the lib stuff. I know we've talked about the lib stuff a lot, but
I don't know their positions. Who's supporting who on Ukraine?
Oh, Lactoid is supporting Ukraine.
Lactoid is super pro-Ukraine. Yeah, pro-Ukraine Lactoid.
He's not pro-Ukraine. Don't listen to those liars. Okay, he is very anti-Ukraine.
Okay,
he's very pro-Russia. Kalinda is